South Jersey's official play-by-play home of the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers.
At 0 point would I ever consider not being a fan of the team.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Hurts in the gun. Motion. Hurts gives it off. Now hands it off, and it is a touchdown as he gets it to Goddard. He fakes it, and then he just gets it to Goddard.
Yep, excellent
play.
play.
He's done that before with a little bit of a...
Merrill, it's the shovel pad.
As heard on 97.3 ESPN, Merrill Reese, Mike Quick, a dominating performance by the Eagles. Now, wouldn't it have been apropos if somebody came out yesterday and said, is that what y'all wanted to see? Jalen Hurts, a near flawless game, 12 for 15, 3 touchdowns. Really should have had 4. Dallas Goedert. That was really the only mistake of the game. Goddard dropped that touchdown pass, but the Eagles cruised to a win over the Raiders, 31-0. I mean, listen, it's what you wanted to see, right? But what does it do for you? That's what I'm interested in. As we start off today live at Ocean Casino at the Fanatics Sportsbook here in Atlantic City. I'm Mike Gill. My on-site producer is Pete G. You were at the game yesterday there, Pete, were you?
I was.
And Josh Henning is back in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios.
Very cold.
You out there. Was it cold? Did people stay to the end? Like, at what point?
Nah, that place emptied out.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when McKee came in there, that opened up.
What do you mean when McKee came in? Isn't that what everybody wanted to see?
Yes. He actually
Jalen Hurts was like, you guys all asked for McKee, I'll get McKee into the game for you.
That's what I was saying. I was like, everyone wanted McKee. This is not the way they wanted it.
That was brilliant, though. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
Hurts is like, you guys really want McKee? I'll get McKee into this game for you. Just watch and learn. I laugh all week long about, how preposterous it was for anybody to even insinuate that Tanner McKee should play, and then Jalen Hurts is like, no, I want him to play. I'll just go 12 of 15 and just surgically dissect. Now, listen, the Raiders are terrible, so I don't know what you take or make of the game yesterday, but you did get McKee into the game.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw Jeff Mosher's headline on Philly Voice. It says, Eagles finally bench Jalen Hurts and blowout win.
Good stuff.
That's good.
No Mosher today, by the way. Adam Kaplan
Yeah,
and Mosher are flip-flopping for today's football at 4. I mean, listen, it was the kind of game that you needed to see, but it's the kind of game that you also say it's the Raiders, but if they don't do that to the Raiders, then you're complaining. Like if they win the game 17-7 and the offense still looks clunky, you're still questioning them. Like I think the score I gave on Friday was like 27-7 or 27-9, something like that. I mean, I just figured they would just dominate them and get the offense going again, and I thought it would be a bounce-back game for Hurts. Like, Jalen Hurts gets questioned because he's not the quarterback that you envision, right? You want this guy that's not Jalen Hurts. You're expecting, something different when you think of franchise quarterback. And then here's Jalen Hurts comes in and does it unconventional. And then he doesn't play well, admittedly. Like, you're not going to play well every single week. He's not Patrick Mahomes, who got hurt yesterday, by the way, and is out, and the Chiefs are going to miss the playoffs. He's not, your classic quarterback that is going to throw the ball 35, 40 times a game. But when he has to do it, when he is questioned and has his back to the wall, if we haven't learned anything from Jalen Hurts, is the moment is never too big for him. And yesterday, you could make a case that the pressure had to be cooking in that building yesterday.
And that's what he said after the game. He said, people forget how I'm built, where I came from, Alabama, yada, yada, yada. He said that after the game. It wasn't quite, is that what y'all wanted to see? Which was good. He didn't do that because it was the Raiders in the end. But he did kind of have something to say to everybody.
Well, I was going to say, That, first off, the one touchdown pass he threw, that's the most emotion you've seen from Jalen Hurts, right?
Yeah.
He was definitely pumping his fist, and he was into the touchdown.
Hard Knocks going to be fun this week, boys.
It will be a good episode, hopefully, because the first two have stunk. Now,
Oh, jeez.
you don't agree?
I don't think they stunk.
I agree.
No, I think the second one was horrendous.
I think the
It
second
was
one was okay. I think it was horrendous.
Waste of my $18 so far.
Yep.
The best part of my $18 is that I saw season 12 of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Well, that's worth it, isn't it?
Yeah. So now I could say this. Speaking of Hard Knocks, Josh, it goes for as long as the NFC East teams are alive. Well, it's going to go as long as the Eagles are alive because everybody else is cooked.
Yeah, which is going to be interesting.
Washington is obviously done. The Giants are eliminated. And the Cowboys, it was fun while it lasted. They are mathematically still alive. But I love all the Cowboy fans who are going to now, do you really think, this is what I love about the Cowboy fans, about how delusional this group of people are. The Cowboy fans have made a living off of thinking that the league is rigged against them.
Right.
But what they don't understand is there's two teams in this league right now that the NFL wants to be good. One, the Chiefs. Two, the Cowboys. Now, their Christmas lineup is ruined because the Cowboys didn't hold up their end of the bargain and the Chiefs couldn't hold up their end of the bargain. So now you have two games on Christmas, really three, that have no meaning to them.
Which means we can all watch the NBA.
Yeah.
The Warriors, the
Yeah,
Lakers,
baby.
the Knicks.
I love it.
By the way, do you guys realize that we are going to be entering an NFL postseason with no Mahomes, potentially no Lamar Jackson if things don't go right, and potentially maybe even no Aaron Rodgers? Like, your best quarterbacks in the postseason are going to be Stafford, Hurts, and Allen.
Well, this is the first time the playoffs will not have Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, or Patrick Mahomes since 1998.
Right.
So it was a big day yesterday. And listen, the Cowboys lost last night, and what was it? Was it last night?
Cowboys lost last
Vikings,
night,
yeah.
Man,
Brendan Aubrey missed 2 field goals. Come on.
Yeah, well, and the Cowboys
J.J.
lost.
McCarthy was grittying to the end zone.
He was.
I was like, why did I think that game was Thursday night for some reason?
But
And it
that's
was
the whole
last
point,
night.
right? When you were making, the Cowboys allowed J.J. McCarthy to hit the gritty on them.
Yes.
To basically end
Well,
their season.
in the end, the Cowboys' defense caught up to them again, right? The Cowboys' defense caught up to them. They had a nice little run where they beat the Eagles and they beat the Chiefs. But let's be honest, the Chiefs weren't all that good. They're not a playoff team. So it's like, yeah, it's cute you beat the Chiefs, but that's not a playoff team. You beat a non-playoff team that the Cowboys did, and they beat the Eagles.
And you could argue the Eagles let them beat them. The Cowboys didn't really beat them.
Yeah, I mean, that was a game where give Dallas credit. They came back, they beat the Eagles, and they kind of opened the door a little bit to some Eagles issues. And I'm not saying all the issues are fixed, but the Dallas issues never got resolved. Their defense was not very good. To give up as many points as they did yesterday to the Vikings, and they're at home, by the way. You're at home against Minnesota, whose offense stinks, and you can't slow them and stop them down. Now, there is a mathematical possibility for Dallas. They would have to win all three, and Philadelphia will have to lose all three.
Correct.
Otherwise, Dallas is now eliminated. They cannot be a wild card team. So they will not be in the playoffs. So Hard Knocks will follow the Eagles for as long as they go. You'll get Hard Knocks for the Giants, Washington, and Dallas for 3 more weeks. Other than that, it'll be all Eagles-oriented, and that will be kind of interesting, I guess, right? They're not going to do like off-season guys cleaning out their lockers, are they, for Dallas?
They sometimes do that.
Tomorrow's episode will be about
No, I'm talking about when the season's over.
Right.
Because Josh had said before, the Hard Knocks will follow the team for as long as they're alive. So if the Eagles go to the Super Bowl, the show will keep
We're
going.
We're going to have Hard Knocks
until
going all the way through January.
Wow, so really, Hard Knocks should have done the AFC South. Because all those teams are alive.
Yeah, but nobody cares about those teams.
Yeah,
that's the
that's
problem.
true.
Well, listen, the Eagles are still alive, and they did it yesterday with a couple of things. I definitely think we should take a look at, one, the running game yesterday. It got going a little bit. I wouldn't say the running game's back. But Barkley had more yards yesterday than the Raiders had as a team. That shows you how bad the Raiders were. 2, the pass game, they only threw the ball 15 times, or Hurts only threw the ball 15 times. But Did anybody else see a little bit more creativity, a little bit more wrinkle, a little bit more, another layer to the offense yesterday? Did
Absolutely.
anybody look
The
at
red
that
zone
offense?
stuff was great by Patullo.
Yeah, I mean, Patullo had probably his best, most efficient, most unique game. I mean, he pulled out some stuff yesterday. You're like, wow, I didn't know you had that one in your bag there.
But I would also say the players finally executed the game plan, too. Like, there have been plays called this year where Patullo called the right play, and the players didn't execute. So it's a combination of both yesterday.
Case in point, the touchdown to Goddard. I mean, that's a great play call. Goddard is wide open, and he drops the football. I mean, that's not a bad play call. That's a great play. And there's a lot of those things that happen, and you're just like, the play calling, though, yesterday, I've complained a lot about there's no rhythm. There's no story. They're never setting anything up. And yesterday, you saw them because they were able to run. But that shows you what running the ball does for this team. Because they could run the ball yesterday, it allowed them to stick with the run, stick with the run, stick with the run. Then they take the shot over the top. The one to, Devontae Smith.
Well, Devontae Smith one was interesting because that's the kind of play that Nick Foles has actually been talking about on his podcast. Because remember, he has said, hey, when they can execute some of these plays, it's great. It's when they don't execute the play that it looks like, why did you call that play?
And they only had 3 penalties for 35 yards, I think, and that
big
really
factor in the
was
game.
a huge factor.
By the way, one of those penalties was a Tyler Steen again.
This Tyler Steen holding, yeah.
Well, and there was the 15-yarder on
Cooper.
Yeah.
Well, that whole thing. I mean, he
got 2 penalties on one play. That's right. One was declined. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the one was declined, but then he shoved him again later in the game as well. They didn't call that one, but hey.
But it's a good point that you bring up, Pete, is that it shows you the discipline yesterday goes hand in hand. The run game was there, the discipline. They didn't have these, 9 penalties for 78 yards.
Fundamentals.
Right, and I get it. It's hard because it's the Raiders. So I would imagine if you're texting in today, it's the Raiders. I need to see more. But then if they don't blow the doors off the Raiders, then you're complaining.
Then you're ripping them for it.
But listen, you got to do what some teams can't do. You got to take care of the Raiders. You got to blow the Raiders out. If you don't blow the Raiders out, you've got to just absolutely look at yourself.
Guy just walked by and said the Raiders stink.
Of course they do. We're not idiots. I mean, everybody knows the Raiders stink. That's a stupid comment.
But guess what? You just mentioned, Mike, if you don't blow out the Raiders, you're condemned, right? Well, you know what the games the Raiders played close this year? The Raiders played the Broncos close. You lost to the Broncos earlier
Last
this year.
week they played the Broncos close.
Exactly. So this could have been a day where you could have come in and been like, you barely beat the Raiders. No, instead you dominated them.
Well, and listen, look around the league. Carolina needs to win the game yesterday. They lose to New Orleans. New Orleans has now won.
Yeah.
New Orleans has now won back-to-back games against the division leaders, right?
Yep.
And you could say, look, Carolina, you got New Orleans on your schedule. There's your opportunity to take control of the NFC South, and they couldn't get the job done.
Couldn't do it.
One. Carolina Tampa Bay the week before is playing New Orleans, and they can't beat them.
Yep.
So, there are times on your schedule where you have a game that looks like you should take care of business. And if you don't take care of business, the end result is now Carolina should be in the lead. Now they're tied. Tampa Bay should be in the lead. Now they're tied. Where Philadelphia plays a game where, look, they should have done what they did yesterday. But how many times do you see a team get, number one, shut out, number two, they didn't have 100 yards of total offense in the game. There's one thing about winning a game against somebody. The other part of it is completely and utter dominating that team. You don't see that at the NFL level all that often.
By the way, really quick, that is the fewest yards the Raiders have had in any game this season. Any game. That's
Who?
fewer. The Raiders.
Well, I would hope so. 75. Jeez.
No, but think about it. The Raiders got 100 more yards against the Chargers defense. They had almost 200 total yards against the Broncos defense. Like, this is a team that found yards in chunks earlier this year against other teams, but the Eagles were the one that kept them to 75.
I think yesterday, too, Raiders, 1 o'clock game, flying across the country. It's 20 degrees outside. It's snowing.
Well, see,
they had no business. They just did not want to be out there.
I thought, though, what Pete Carroll said after the game needs to be talked about, right? What Pete Carroll said after the game was, we just got whipped by a really loaded football team. These guys fought their asses off. That was the result. They didn't stop fighting. That was the result of our play right there. I have a lot of respect for the roster we just played against, and maybe they don't look like it the last couple of weeks, but whatever. They played like they were capable. So here's Pete Carroll saying, my team fought hard, and the end result was that right there. He wasn't saying, like, my team didn't give effort, that was a terrible effort by us. He's saying we tried as hard as we could, and we got Rochambeau'd by that
Can
team.
both things be true, though?
Impossible. Here it is.
I think we just got whipped by a really loaded football team, and that on this day had their way. These guys fought their ass off. Hold on. Let me address that because you brought it up. They fought their ass off. That was the result. They didn't stop fighting. That was the result of our play right there. And I have a lot of respect for the roster we just played against. And maybe they didn't look like it in the last couple of weeks or whatever, but they played like they're capable. And
yeah. He is trying to tell his media, we played our asses off. We really tried, and we couldn't do anything against that team. That is one of those moments where, in the NFL, there are very few times where you are just outclassed. I mean, like yesterday, you watch Houston play Arizona. Houston went in there with a purpose and blew their doors off, even though the end result is Houston scored 20 points in the game. Right? Even though Houston blew their doors off, they still gave up 20 in the game, and they have a great defense.
Then there's the Bears and the Browns. Bears Rochambeau'd the Browns.
The Bears Rochambeau'd the Browns. Yes, the Browns are really bad. They have a tough situation moving forward here with what they're going to do. I mean, do you think that Shedeur Sanders is your quarterback? Do you want to take another look at him next year? This is why not playing him earlier in the year, you didn't really get enough of a look at him. They put themselves in a terrible situation. But there's a lot of times where, a bad team plays and the end result is in 31-0 with 75 total yards. Now, there's a couple things I also want to throw into the mix here. We haven't talked about this. The Eagles' defense yesterday was absolutely dominant, and this is without Jalen Carter. But this is where the Eagles might benefit by not having Carter the last couple of weeks because, one, he doesn't have to play all these games. He can rest up a little bit, right? Get himself healthy for the playoffs. Now you've also seen that you can shift Brandon Graham down, give him some snaps. He can help you as an interior pass rusher.
He could play another year, as far as I'm concerned.
Right, the way that he played
with that
yesterday,
output.
He had 2 sacks, but he says he really likes playing this defensive tackle position. So now they have found him some. And listen, when you have a guy that can pass rush from the interior, right? If you have another guy that can pass rush from the interior that you didn't know, this whole injury situation has given the Eagles a chance to play Ojomo a little bit more, Byron Young a little bit more, but it's given them Brandon Graham and it maybe unlocked a whole spot on the roster and in their defense that they didn't know. Then, listen, I know we've talked a lot about what are you doing with Jahad Campbell, but Dean was awesome yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Dean was awesome yesterday. That guy was all over the place. Bond, he was another guy, he gets the interception, and that's the kind of player that he is. He had a really good, solid game. He had a bunch of tackles yesterday. He had the interception in the game yesterday. How about Adoree Jackson, though? I mean, he's another guy that got ripped for a lot of this season, and that was the interception, by the way, by Surtain. It was unbelievable.
Oh, that's the play that Watson hurt himself on.
This one, right? Look at this thing.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah.
What a catch. But Adoree Jackson has really solidified that second cornerback spot, and then Cooper DeJean, he is just – in that role that they've created for him, he is second to none in that slot. So their defense, yes, I get it. It's the Raiders. But the Raiders don't get shut out, getting 75 yards every single week. Now, their offense has been pretty dismal the last 5 weeks or so. I think they're only averaging about 12 points a game.
Is that the way that the Eagles should be playing, though, right? Hurts, 15 pass attempts, defense dominates, try to get the run game going.
It's a good question because
last week Hurts threw the ball 40 times.
That's the kind of game that you want, though, right? Is where Hurts only throws. Now, how many passes did McKee throw yesterday?
McKee threw 3. He was 3 for 3.
Okay, so 18 passes they threw in the game. Yeah, that's about where you want to be. 18 to 22 passes.
And it was a blowout, so that kind of was the script.
Yeah,
right?
But guess what? If it's a close game and you only need to throw because now how many times did they run the ball? What was their running? Because I know
47 rush attempts.
Right, I know that Bigsby had a bunch of carries yesterday.
He had
too.
17 carries.
Right,
yeah.
and a lot of them came. It was like the Giant game where they were up,
Right.
and they're giving Bigsby carries in the second half. So it was really a hard script to kind of to say, hey, that's the script. But yeah, at the end of the day, you want Hurts to be in like the 18 to 22 passing range.
But
because you ran the ball well and your defense was dominant.
But also, really quick, you also want him to be in that, hey, don't take risks. Don't put the quarterback in a position where he has to force the ball. Just give him quick, easy throws. If he's going to go deep, let it be clear options. Don't put so much on the guy's plate. Remember, it was A.J. Brown a month ago who, when they asked him about, hey, you're not getting you the ball enough, he's like, well, he goes, Jalen Hurts got a lot on his plate. That guy's got a lot to deal with than just throwing me the ball.
609-403-0973. Hit me up with a couple texts here before we some Phillies news, too, by the way, we're going to get to.
Oh, they signed Nick Castellanos. Oh, no, sorry.
Stop.
The Spider-Man meme.
Poor.
Yeah.
García is way better than Castellanos.
They signed Max Kepler again.
Again, not true either because he's right-handed.
Yeah, I know. Still, it was a $10 million deal, though.
I take the Flyer for 1 year, $10 million. This one makes a lot more sense than the Kepler one. That being said, we'll break it down in a little bit.
Brandon in Dennisville chimes in and says,
Brandon in Dennisville, my man, what's up?
He says the quarterback position in Philly is one of the most frustrating topics between fans. Most people act like if a quarterback isn't a perennial MVP candidate year in and year out, he stinks. It reminds me of the McNabb years. He was ridiculed by most, all while setting all kinds of franchise records, says Brandon in Dennisville.
Well, listen, I talked about it last week, where you can go to insert city, bring up quarterback, and you'll have total agreement on Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes. You name a quarterback, go to that city, sit at the bar, bring his name up, and you can have a nice discussion. You do that here, you'll have a fist fight. There is no universal agreement on the quarterback, and there really never has been, right?
McNabb, Wentz,
Vic,
Hurts,
Wentz,
Foles.
You name it. Yeah, even Foles, the guy that won the Super Bowl and universally is liked by everybody, but there are some people that think that he
was
should
lucky.
have his jersey retired, or he wasn't as good, that he got lucky, he went on that run.
Yep.
I mean, I think everybody appreciates him, but I think some people think that he was, should have started the next year and not Wentz. I mean, there's never universal, we have the best quarterback in the league. I mean, not that Hurts is the best quarterback in the league, but you know what I mean.
A couple more texts squeezed in here. We got Glenn from Absecon says,
Glenn.
He says, with Kenny Pickett as your quarterback, what kind of offensive production did you think you were going to get from the Raiders? The Eagles did what they were supposed to do, says
Of
Glenn.
course they were. I mean, no one's debating that. I mean, but, Glenn, I would ask you this. Kenny Pickett, first off, was a first-round pick. He's won games in this league. The other alternative was Geno Smith. So their quarterback play, yes, it is not great. But how many times does a Kenny Pickett-led team end up with 75? I don't care who the quarterback is. He had 75 yards
the fewest
of total
yards.
offense.
Right, and again, the fewest yards Raiders have had all season in a game.
So, yes, they did what they were supposed to do. But if Kenny Pickett threw for 280 and they scored 7 points, would you be complaining today? Probably.
Yep.
You can't win in a game like this. And by the way, they play the Commanders next week. You probably can't win if you blow them out.
They should be. That should be a more difficult game, right? You would think.
Commanders have won, what, 2 straight? Did they win? They won yesterday. They won the week
Just
before.
on the road, division rival.
And I talked about this
stuff.
before. And look, they got Jaden Daniels back. Now he's hurt again. This is back when they got Daniels back. And if you watch the first Hard Knocks, it was one of the things that they had practice, and they were like, look, I'm not used to seeing all these guys at practice. They were starting to get healthy.
Right.
And then Daniels got hurt again. But one of the things was, you got to remember, they went to the NFC Championship game last year, and the Eagles beat them. You would think that they come out with trying to get some revenge in that game on Saturday. Like, hey, we want to hurt the Eagles' chances here. We're not here to, but in reality, they're beat up. They're not that good. They're just not that good. That's a bit, although they did win the other day. They did beat the Giants, something the Eagles didn't do earlier this season. All right, more texts. On the other side, we'll get into the Eagles. How impressed was Mike McGarry? Plus, the Phillies have signed a right-handed bat, 2-time All-Star, the ALCS MVP in 2023. We'll discuss next on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN.
All of us at 97.3 ESPN.
Tune in to the best station on the North Pole.
South Jersey's home for Eagles football.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Keeping the fans entertained and happy.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Hurts calling for the football. He's back again. He looks, he fires, and it is complete. Touchdown, A.J. Brown, 27 yards.
Hey, a little A.J. Brown touchdown from Jalen Hurts. There you go. The holiday season's here. Everybody's happy. Jalen Hurts looked good. Tanner McKee got in the game. Brandon Graham had 2 sacks, a shutout. What more could you want, right? And the Phillies made a signing today. We'll dive into it all right now. By the way, I do want to bring up last night the atrocious officiating in that Sixer game.
Yeah, Embiid scored 39 the other night. PG had a great game last night.
Embiid looked very Embiid-ish on Friday night. He did play last night, too, which was a good sign. No Maxey last night, but the missed call by the official in that game on the over and back. Although Nick Nurse had a rough night at the office, not calling that timeout late in the game either. He had 2 timeouts left. Then he couldn't challenge the one play because it's a not challengeable call. That was a mess. But Mike McGarry's here from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. We're going to get into everything that we saw over the weekend. Little vintage Jalen Hurts, vintage Eagles, 31-0, a little run game, a little 12 for 15, very efficient day. All seems well. Were you impressed? What do we take from a game against the Raiders?
Well, you kind of expect the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Raiders, even coming off the losing streak that the Eagles were on, but you wanted to see them look good or look impressive or win the game the right way, and the Eagles checked every box. I mean, an outstanding job by the defense. They were able to run the football. You mix that in with timely big plays, and yes, that is a recipe for winning football games. Stingy defense, timely big plays, and controlling the game via the run. The Eagles checked every box yesterday, so at least for an afternoon, Eagles Nation can exhale.
Yeah, everybody says, hey, but it's the Raiders. Is that fair? Or does it lessen all the concerns we've had? Or that one of those games where it's like, I don't care who it was against, that was good to see?
Yeah, it was good to see. I don't care who was against. I mean, the Raiders, I know they've only won 2 games, but one of the Eagles' losses is to a 2-win Giants team. So for comparison purposes right there, they're still an NFL franchise, and what you wanted to do yesterday is you wanted to see the Eagles play well. Not only win the game, but play well. And that's exactly what the Eagles did, and especially defensively. I mean, this defense has, rebounded from the debacle that was the Bears game with 2 really impressive performances. So that's another reason for Eagles fans to be optimistic because, in the playoffs, defense and running the football wins. And, the Eagles can play defense, and if they can run it like they did yesterday, then they have as good a shot as anybody in what is a wide-open NFL, especially after yesterday.
Yeah, and, one of the things is they got the offense going a little bit, but that was kind of a Hurts, did you get the sense after the game, Mike, that Hurts did have a little chip on his shoulder, throughout this last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen that from him in the past, kind of, after he's been questioned, after he's been criticized. What was it last year? He came in after he had the big passing game, and he said, is that what you all wanted to see and stuff like that? Yeah, that's what we wanted to see yesterday. I thought, Hurts, 7 carries for 39 yards. You look at the box score, and you say, boy, that's not a great running day. But it was when he ran yesterday, he ran in key times to pick up first downs, extend plays, extend drives. I thought he was more aggressive as far as running. And when he runs the football and doesn't throw it 30 times a game, it's much better for both him and the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. And, of course, I don't know, they give the defense yesterday gives up 75 total yards. I know it's against the Raiders. Kenny Pickett, obviously, not a top-level quarterback, but you give up 75 yards against anybody. We don't question the defense all that much. But when you watch that defense, it does go to show that that's a defense that you can make a deep playoff run with.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a recipe for winning in the playoffs. We've seen teams do this before. The Baltimore Ravens with Trent Dilfer at quarterback. Some of the Giants teams in the past that have won Super Bowls. If you can play defense and you can run the football, you can win in the postseason. Now, the one caveat there, I would say, I'd rather be doing that on my home field for all three games. It looks like the Eagles are going to be, a number 3 seed possibly, or, they still got a shot at the 2 seed, even the 1 seed, but right now they're in that 3 seed range, and that means only one playoff game. So I think that style of football is kind of harder to do on the road, especially if you have to go to a warm weather site. If you're playing the Rams or something like that, you're going to have to, I think, at some points put a lot of points on the board in the postseason. But hey, you defend, you run the football, you make timely big plays, and most importantly, don't turn it over. That's a recipe for winning in the playoffs.
All right, Mike, let's shift over to the Phillies, who made a little news today. Reports are that they are going to get a right-handed bat that plays right field. No, it's not Nick Castellanos coming back, although he still is signed. They're going to have to figure out how to get rid of him. But Adolis García, a right fielder, played with the Texas Rangers, ALCS MVP, had an unbelievable playoff run in 2023, but has been kind of a shell of himself the last 2 years. What do we make of this deal?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like going to the Wawa or convenience store up the street, and you buy that lottery card at the machine, and it's a scratch off, and the Phillies are hoping that they scratch off and win $1,000 or $10,000 with Garcia. They're obviously taking a chance. There's a reason why Texas didn't offer him a contract all this past season. He's got some warts. You mentioned the great 2023 postseason run, but since then he's been underwhelming at the plate. He does hit for power, but he does strike out an awful lot there. So in many ways, offensively, he's almost the same player as Nick Castellanos. However, defensively, he is a significant upgrade over Castellanos. Garcia is actually a really good right fielder. So you get the upgrade there, but offensively, hey, he reminds you of a Max Kepler or Castellanos. You don't see much different there offensively.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the interesting point there is he's a Gold Glove winner in right field, so he is a better defensive player than Nick Castellanos. But, I mean, everything else across the board, his batting average is lower. Power hasn't hit for much. He had 19 homers last year, which I think is about the same amount that Castellanos had. His on-base percentage slightly higher, but not much. I mean, it's almost like you're almost getting a carbon copy of Nick Castellanos, but you're hoping that maybe a change of scenery unlocks him because he did show serious power for 3 straight seasons. He had 39 homers, 27 homers, and 31 home runs. So he did have a power surge there in Texas, 2021, 2022, and 2023, and maybe coming here in this lineup. Now, the interesting part will be, where do you hit him in the lineup? He had a guy at 19 homers last year. Does he hit behind Harper? That'll be an interesting storyline.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. You're right. He does have some impressive spots on the resume there. He's a two-time All-Star. You mentioned the postseason. He had 8 home runs, 320 batting averages during the Texas Rangers ride to the World Series in 2023. And I know the Phillies have a tremendous amount of confidence in hitting coach Kevin Long. And maybe they figure, we'll get him in here and see what we can do. We can fix him. Maybe we can get him on a better track. And Mike, I kind of like signings like this with players, players like this, and sometimes pitchers that have had a down season or two. It's in there. They've done it in the past. So now you're taking a shot for $10 million. You're getting no worse than the same player you had last year offensively, and you're getting a significant upgrade defensively here. So I
Yeah.
understand, while it might underwhelm the people that just look at the stats, like you said, and say, hey, he's the same hitter, he is a significant upgrade defensively, and maybe the Phillies think that they can help him get back to where he was 2-3 seasons ago. And when you look at the rest of the market, it's not like, Babe Ruth is sitting out there waiting to be signed to play right field for the Phillies next year.
Well, last year they took the flyer on Max Kepler, a 1 year, $10 million. It's the same deal, 1 year, but he was a left-handed hitter, and you're like, this doesn't really make a lot of sense here. Now, Garcia, a right-handed hitter, 32 years old, we think anyway, right? You always have to wonder sometimes, some of these guys. But 32 years old, is he just a guy who kind of had that 3 years, run, and his last 2 years have not been all that good, but he does have a lot. And the one thing is, if you go back to 2023 and that run he had in the playoffs for Texas, very passionate player. This is a guy that might thrive off this fan base here. That's one thing that stands out to me, is this is a guy who does play with a lot of passion. You saw him with a lot of the bat spikes, and he'd hit these home. I mean, that run he went on, 22 RBIs. That is a postseason record. So the change of scenery, right-handed hitter, playing in this park, in this lineup, I definitely think it was worth, taking a flyer on. Because, as you mentioned, Mike, he's even if he is just Nick Castellanos, he at least can play right field every single day for you.
Right, absolutely. And you go from a guy who was arguably the worst right fielder in baseball, according to defensive metrics last year, and according to analytics, one of the worst players in baseball, to Garcia. So I understand. It also gives you a little bit, you're also now able to look at the rest of the outfield and say to yourself, okay, well, maybe they're going to put Crawford in center field, and then maybe, you have a Marsh, Otto Kemp platoon in left field. It also allows you to sort of piece together the rest of the outfield too, because, hey, Mike, it's December 15th, and baseball players sign late. We've seen, Bryce Harper signed in March, but we get back from the holidays here. It's basically 6 weeks till pitchers and catchers. So clock is moving fast. So you have to do something. Again, it's a flyer. It's the Wawa lottery card. We'll see what this Phillies scratch off with Garcia.
All right, Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. Real quick, saw Embiid 39 the other night. He did play again on Sunday. I guess that is the story, right? That he played, scored, looked capable, and then was able to come back and play on Sunday. So kind of like baby steps here through the first 25 games. This is the first time that he's been able to play without 2 days rest in between.
Yeah, I think that was a big step for him. And we talked about this stretch, right, Mike, because of the NBA Emirates Cup that's going on. And by the way, I don't know if you saw those games on Saturday, and I'm not a big lover of the Emirates Cup, but I thought the Knicks Magic game followed by Spurs Oklahoma Thunder were just two great basketball games on Saturday in the semifinals. But the Sixers had this point where they're not playing that much, and it should have allowed Embiid and Paul George to kind of get their legs under them. And I thought the most, you talk about what Embiid has done. I think one of the best signs for the Philadelphia 76ers the past couple of games has been Paul George. Looks like Paul George. I mean, I thought he was tremendous the other night. So now if you can kind of keep Embiid healthy, and it's just the Sixers' luck that all of a sudden Paul George and Embiid are healthy and Maxey gets sick.
And Maxey's out now, right?
Make this stuff up,
It's unbelievable.
But if you can, obviously Maxey's going to be okay. And if you can keep Embiid on some sort of regular playing time, and you get the Paul George that you got last night and a couple of the other nights, now you're kind of looking at some. I don't know if you're looking at a team, Mike, that can win the Eastern Conference, but you're looking at a team in the postseason that I would say, hey, I'd rather not play those guys maybe. So it'll be interesting. With the Sixers, you never know. They're the ultimate day-to-day franchise. But you're right, some positive signs with the play of Embiid and Paul George this past weekend.
All right, there you go. Eagles win. Phillies get Adolis, Garcia, and Embiid and Paul George. Good point by you. He had his best game as a Sixer They are off till Friday night. They'll play the Knicks right here on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, we'll have the Eagles on Saturday. And we'll keep our eyes on what the Phillies do next, because I would imagine a Castellanos domino would be the next thing they either release or try to move him. We'll see what happens there. Mike, appreciate the time as always, pal.
All right, Mike, we'll see you down the road. Thank you.
Mike McGarrett from the Press of Atlantic City, PressOfAC.com here on the Sports Bash. When we come back, I'll give you my thoughts on the Phillies signing on Adolis García. What does he bring? Where could he hit in this lineup, and what could be next? Plus, Frank Close, our Phillies insider, joins us at 3:30, and John McMullen with his insight on that Eagles win.
Those scratch-offs are tough, man. I play those a lot,
You ever win?
I'm a loser more times than not.
I just saw, wasn't there a scratch-off at Wawa somewhere around here for like $300,000?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, man.
I think so.
No, I'm a loser pretty much every day.
By the way, I was here at Ocean Saturday night.
I heard.
Bush, outstanding. Not a big Bush guy. Like, I like Bush, but not like have to see him. My cousin told me he thought that Gavin Rossdale's performance was so good, he said, I would see them again.
Wow. So he can still do it.
I actually enjoyed Soul Asylum. Now, the lead singer from Soul Asylum, you know he dated Winona Ryder?
No, I did
At one
not.
point? I mean, he don't look like he could date Winona Ryder anymore.
Now, I know Gavin dated, married.
He was married to Gwen Stefani, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the guy who's the lead singer from Soul Asylum, he's like in his 60s now. But
now Gavin's a good performer still at his.
And he's in his 60s. My cousin said he was so surprised at how much he enjoyed Bush. But I went to go see Soul Asylum. I was a big Soul Asylum fan. The concert was great. Place was great. I really liked the setup. Jingle Bell Bar was cool. Went over to Villain and Saints. It was an awesome time, as always, here at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Great concert, though. Really good time. All right, when we come back, Phillies sign Adolis García. I'll give you my insights and thoughts on that, plus John McMullen at 3 o'clock.
Merry Christmas from all of us at 97.3 ESPN.
The most wonderful time of the year. Ho, 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 ho.
South Jersey's home for Eagles football.
Thoughts on the Phillies signing? Hit me up, 609-403-0973.
Was that a winner?
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander for MVP? I think so.
Oh, well, there you go.
Put down like 10 grand. All right, we got some text messages I want to get to. Here, I'll give you my thoughts on Garcia real fast. So Garcia last year,
there you go.
227, 271 on base, 394 slug. These are not great numbers. 19 homers, 13 stolen bases. I mean, realistically, he is essentially, I would say Castellanos had a better offensive season than Adolis Garcia had. But Garcia's is a major upgrade in the outfield. The question would be,
what it means for the rest of the outfield?
Two parts. What does he mean for the rest of the outfield? Because now you have a really good right fielder, where before you had a lousy right fielder.
Right.
So now you have a really good defensive right fielder. The thing for me, I think the Phillies, obviously the relationship was fractured with Castellanos, terrible defensive player, mediocre offensive player. Garcia was a mediocre. I can make an argument that Castellanos was a better offensive player than Garcia was last year. I think the question is, I think Castellanos keeps trending downward, as does Garcia. But does getting Garcia in this lineup unlock a big year? Because his biggest years, power-wise, are bigger than Castellanos' biggest years power-wise. Not offensively overall, but his best year power-wise in 2023, he had 39 homers. Can he come here and hit 29 homers? That's what I think the Phillies have to wonder. We'll get into it a little bit later on. Frank Close at 3:30 today on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.
Jalen Hurts had his best day of the season. They win 31-0, and it's an absolute romp with a balanced offense, 12 rushing first downs, 12 passing first downs. He threw 3 incompletions, and one of them was a surefire touchdown that Dallas Goedert just happened to drop. The Barbarians were at the gate. They kept them at bay. And to me, in that market, with what this week's narrative would have been, that was an enormous performance from Jalen Hurts.
That was Peter Schrager this morning, and of course, the Eagles kind of get the, it's like being on a cruise, right? You got a sample of everything. The run game was back, the efficient Jalen Hurts, the defense with a shutout, 75 yards the defense gives up. You had Brandon Graham with a couple of sacks. The holiday season, man. John McMullen's back. Birds 365. First time in a while that was a fun day at the office, John. First time in a while.
Yeah, well, just order the Las Vegas Raiders. No problem. No muss, no fuss. What was that? What did Peter say? What was the quote? How do you have that kind of game against a 2-12 team? What are we doing here? Come on.
That's the thing, though. You've been around long enough that you beat a 2-12 team. You can't get any credit for it. But is this the kind of win that you should get credit for, regardless of opponent?
Well, it's good. You can only play who's in front of you, so I don't blame anybody for playing the Raiders when they're on the schedule. But you also have to be realistic about it. So, they could have played down to their competition. They didn't, so that's a positive. But yeah, you don't learn much from it if you're being completely honest with yourself. That's a terrible football team, as evidenced. Forget about the score. 75 yards of total offense. You got to go back to 1955 and the Chicago Cardinals for an Eagles defense that had given up that many yards or fewer. 1955. I mean, you can trip and sneeze and get 75 yards in the modern NFL.
Yeah. Well, listen, we know the Eagles' defense has not been a problem, but they played at another level. And I'll tell you, let's start with them a little bit here, because not having Jalen Carter here, have they kind of found something with Brandon Graham rushing from the middle, or is this just a byproduct of the Raiders being that bad?
Well, I think if you look at it, I do think people are starting to get a little bit too excited about not having Jalen Carter. And if you look at the two games, it's been the Los Angeles Chargers and the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Chargers are a pretty good team. But one thing they don't have without Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt is a good offensive line. And then you had a terrible offensive line again yesterday against the Raiders. So, you do have to add these contextual bits into it. At some point, the Eagles are going to clinch, probably Saturday, going to win the NFC East again. They're going to be in the postseason, probably the third seed. At some point, they're going to play a good football team, and it's not going to look like what it's looked with a good offensive line. But we'll see. When the Eagles play well defensively, they're really, really good. And they've been good all year situationally. They've just been a little bit inconsistent.
Yeah, and listen, you have the defense yesterday all over the place. You got an offense in the Raiders that just isn't very good, coupled with a bad offensive line. But, even bad. Look, Kenny Pickett's nothing special, but there are far worse quarterbacks that have played in this league over the years that have generated more than 75 yards of offense. I get it. Yeah. It's not like you shut down Tom Brady back there, but to get 75 yards, your defense was outstanding. And the fact of the matter is this, it was a great effort in the run game, the pass rush. You saw a little bit of everything. But that was coupled by the fact that, hey, your offense kept your defense off the field a little bit too yesterday. They got the run game going, but it was more than what they did, John. It was kind of like there was like a setup in the offense. They seemed to have a purpose yesterday in the offense.
Yeah, people are going to get mad at me, but I kind of go, when people go overboard and say Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni have a high school offense, I defend them. And then, 2 weeks later when they say, well, they had a purpose, they did this, I'm like, no, they executed well against a bad football team. And when you execute well, there's open things. And I think it has more to do with that than, all of a sudden in week 15 they had a plan. I don't know. I can't go down that route. They've had a plan all season, but when you start 1st and 10 with that plan and it ends up being 2nd and 13, well, the plan's out the window, and you got to go to plan B and plan C. So when you execute, you stay ahead of the sticks, you look good. And it looks like, they had a plan this week. They have a plan every week.
Well, that's true. I guess, and your point is certainly valid there. The whole thing comes together when you execute, right? You only had 3 penalties yesterday. You had the execution, and you saw the one play you didn't execute was a touchdown in the end zone. And when the things are going bad, you say, that's a terrible play call. Well, the guy dropped the ball. He's wide open in the end zone. So, but it just seemed that they – when you're watching, they've seen that they added a couple more layers, much like the week before, but this week added layers and executed.
Well, they've not run one thing that's not in the playbook. So I don't know. That's not how you do it in the NFL. You don't show up in week 15 and say, hey, we're going to throw a bunch of stuff. And Nick has been very just kind of consistent on you don't want to add anything to your offense without sort of a thought process behind it. So it's not like you see, hey, that's a cool play from Ben Johnson or somebody like that, and say, let's put it in the offense. You got to say, can our guys do it? Can we teach it? Mm-hmm. It's this long process. So, look, they made a concerted effort to do some different things against the Chargers as far as getting the middle of the field in play, but nothing with routes or concepts they haven't used before. They just amped it up because they felt they needed to put it on film to open up some other things. So, yeah, I that's one of my pet peeves when I hear people say, like I said, 2 weeks ago it was a high school offense. Now, I love the concepts, Mike. I love it. It's like, you can do whatever you want, but the high school coach didn't just wake up and find NFL concepts.
Right. Well, one of the things that I had brought up last week was, and I haven't I'm not like you got to fire Kevin Patullo. Like there's times where, I think that he's kind of lost the confidence of the players at times. But that being said, I was talking about this the other day where he could literally watch a game from last year and call the same exact game that Kellen Moore called play for play. But on first down, Kellen Moore is getting 8 yards on a carry, and he's not getting the same 8 yards. So that changes the dynamics of how he can call everything because the running game hasn't been the same. But the one thing that has added to yesterday between the hash marks, Hurts was 6 for 6 for 71 yards and 3 touchdowns. So having the ability to use all parts of the field certainly opened up the pass game, and you didn't have to throw 40 times to accomplish it.
Yeah, and, you couldn't. That was part of it as well. Again, another windy day, 25, 30 mile an hour sustained winds at certain points. And so they were never going to throw the ball a ton. And obviously you have tremendous efficiency. Only whatever 13 for 15, whatever he ended up being, when everything is clicking, everything looks good. And, if you say even the running game, just they were forced to run it a lot, they still weren't as effective as they want to be. Saquon's still under 4 yards. Tank Bigsby got a lot of carries. He was under 4 yards. So they're not clicking. That's really where they want to start clicking with that running game. And I'm not sure it's coming for a multitude of reasons. I don't think Saquon's playing as well. The offensive line's not playing as well. Jalen hasn't been involved, and he gets involved yesterday in the running game. Looks a little bit better, and he tweaks his ankle. So how is that going to impact them moving forward? Are they going to be more cautious? How are they going to do it? Now, once they get to the playoffs, it's Katie barred the door. Everything's involved. He's going to run whatever he has to do to win a football game. But to manage him and get to that point, because you're pretty much locked in. It's going to be very difficult to get the number 1 seed, even the number 2 seed. So the worst you're going to be is number 3. And if that's the case, we'll see how early they shut things down as far as in advance of the playoff.
Yeah, they got that balancing act now where Saturday's game, they win that game, they have the next 2 weeks to kind of figure out what they want to do here. And do they value being the 2 seed over the 3 seed? Like, is that something that you think really matters?
Well, yeah, you always want to play that second game at home if you can. It wouldn't surprise me if Chicago wins and gets the second seed. It wouldn't surprise me if they would be a prime upset candidate. But I do think if they have to go to Chicago, it's still not a game you're quaking in your boots. Probably not the best weather in the world, but it's probably not going to be the best weather in the world if it were here. I do think that they would, especially after they lost to Chicago, and I do think Vic would make the adjustments. That, to me, is a good matchup. So I wouldn't be too concerned. But you always want the game to be in Philadelphia if possible.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that if you're in that wild card round, which, obviously right now you're kind of locked into that wild card round unless the Rams really fall apart, although they do have a tough game on Thursday night that could open the door for you.
The problem with that is even if they do, because you have the tiebreaker, they're playing Seattle, so you have to jump over both. If Seattle beats the Rams, well, that's great, but then Seattle's got 2 games on you with 2 to play. Mm-hmm. So it's extremely unlikely that they're going to get the number 1 seed.
Right, yeah. So that path to the number 1 seed is very, very, very slim. And that being said, man, that first wild card round, you might get stuck playing San Francisco or, Green Bay or one of those. Green Bay took a hit yesterday. But these NFC playoffs, right? Yeah, the NFC playoffs, really the depth of the NFC outside of that team from the South it's a loaded field. So there is no strategically trying to figure out what's a better path outside of, hey, you want as many home games as you can get.
Yeah, I kind of look at it as the Rams are, to me, the most well-rounded team, but the Eagles have kind of had their number. Seattle's a little bit of an unknown, but obviously a very good team. And then everybody else, I'm kind of, that Micah Parsons injury is devastating for Green Bay.
Yeah.
I don't think Chicago's ready. San Francisco, I think, is a product of its schedule, not their fault, but they were a last-place team, and they had kind of an easy road. Now, Fred Warner and Nick Bosa were around. I might have a little bit of a different take, but they aren't. And I also think their best quarterback isn't playing. I think they're better when Mac Jones is out there. So, yeah, I kind of look at it. If things have brightened up around Philadelphia when it comes to the Eagles, I think they're set up nicely. I really do.
What is what last? Yeah. So did you get the sense, we saw a little bit more emotion, a little bit more fire from Hurts, through the touchdown. You saw him. Then after the game, people forget, how I'm built, where I'm from, all that stuff. Did you get a sense that the outside noise was getting to him a little bit?
Well, he was very short. It was sort of like one of those Jalen Hurts' press conference where he was, giving people 5 words and less answers at times. And, yeah, he probably heard, some of the questions about, although I don't know anybody in that room who had even considered, is benching him, as where some people would bring up. But, unfortunately, when it comes to us, media people, everything gets conflated. I think with the players, and sometimes they don't realize, there's a difference. And like I said, the people in that room asking those questions, nobody, I know every single one of them, nobody said Jalen Hurts should be benched or even brought it up, because it's what Nick Sirianni used the term ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But I'm sure he heard it. And I even heard people bring up the Yankees cap, as a
right
middle finger to a little bit of Philadelphia.
All right. Well, it's one of those things where I don't know what they could do because you got Washington this week, another terrible team right now. Washington's beat up, banged up, although they've won 2 in a row. Then you got that Buffalo game, and by that point, Dallas could be eliminated. The division could be done, and a lot of your avenues to move up. So to navigate your way through the last 3 weeks here, kind of interesting. And we'll obviously be keeping our eye on all the possibilities. But, hey, they did what you had to do yesterday. And, John, I don't care what happens, to give up 75 yards in an NFL game, regardless of opponent. And the way that they were able to just basically have their way. I thought what Pete Carroll said after the game was interesting. You know, he said, look, my guys tried. We just got our asses kicked by a team that was significantly better than we were.
Yeah, I mean, it's the end of the road for Pete, I think, unfortunately. But, yeah, they got their you-know-what's handed to them. But to your point about, think about they were dominant against the Chargers defensively, not allowing Justin Herbert to do much in the passing game because of the constant pressure. But remember, they gave up the early play. It was a 60-yard play to Vidal. He got out the back door and bang, you got 60 right there. To go through 60 minutes of football and not have any of that blown coverage, fluke, whatever, 75 yards is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, this defense deserves all the credit in the world. But, when you get to the better teams, it's going to be tougher. I wouldn't expect that consistently. Even the Chargers perform.
No, I was talking about it earlier. Somebody said, well, Kenny Pickett's terrible. I said, listen, there are far worse quarterbacks who have played a game and generated more than 75 yards. I'm not saying Pickett's anything special, but he's far more talented than other guys who have played that position and generated more than 75 yards of offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kenny did a good job here as a backup quarterback, playing through a broken rib, getting them through. And by the way, we won't know until tomorrow, but I do think, people have kind of glossed over it. Jalen Hurts hurt his ankle.
Yep.
On the last play of the third quarter, the entire time they were in the break, he was trying to get that thing loose, and he was struggling with it pretty mightily. And he came in the first play of the fourth quarter, threw the touchdown, and then he left. He left the game. Now,
that'll be interesting to see. Right. If they didn't have that little break between the quarters, if he would have sat that play out or came back in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, just for perspective on this, the Eagles played the 49ers in the NFC Championship game with Brock Purdy, who could not throw, and they had more than 75 yards of total offense.
Yeah.
Just to give you some.
They lost 2 quarterbacks. They lost their backup quarterback.
Josh Johnson came in and threw for 74 yards. Purdy was 4 for 4 for 23 yards in that game, and McCaffrey had 84 yards rushing. But just for perspective, that was a game where the quarterback was a lesser player than Kenny Pickett, and they had more than 75 yards in the game. That's just an unbelievable year. But you are right about the Hurts thing. That was a weird. And by the way, they got him involved in the run game. You're up 24-0 and call up. Now it's like, all right, now you're running the ball too much. Where's the balance?
Well, it's always one of those things. I think that's been kind of overblown all year, but because I remember I had that discussion with Shane Steichen on numerous occasions, because with Shane, it used to be, why is he running so much? Mm-hmm. And it would drive Shane crazy because maybe he runs 13 times in a game, and he would point out, they won the game, and there's 3 kneel downs, and there's 3 quarterback sneaks, and he scrambles 4 times, and there's only 3 design runs, but people look at the box score and say he ran 13 times. Mm-hmm. It used to drive him insane. So even at the heights, he was doing maybe 4 or 5 at the most actual design runs in a game. So I think that's been overblown, other than, I think Jalen's been self-managing himself to get through the season and wait for the, high leverage moments, which are the playoffs,
right?
And then sort of kicking in high gear. I think people will see that and it will become clearer. But that's always one of those where, it's one or the other. He's running it too much. He's not running enough. And half of the time he's scrambling. It's a tush push. It's a sneak. It's it's not a designed quarterback run. So they had a couple quarterback draws that were effective in a few design runs. And that's all it'll be. It won't be much more than that.
All right, well, Eagles 31, Raiders nothing, and obviously a dominating performance. They will play Washington on Saturday. You can listen to that game right here, a 5 o'clock kickoff on 97.3 ESPN. John McMullen will have more on Birds 365 tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. John, thanks, bud.
All right, thanks, Mike.
And no Sirianni today. He is actually going to talk tomorrow. And, of course, John McMullen, as always, here on the Sports Patch is brought to you by our friends at Boardwalk Honda. Shop their lineup of new, pre-owned, and certified pre-owned Hondas online at boardwalkhonda.com. I'm Mike Hill. Sports Bash is live at the Fanatic Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Monday Night Football tonight. Who is it? Ravens?
Steelers, Dolphins.
Oh, Steelers, Dolphins. I kept seeing the Ravens thing for next week. That's what it was. They're on Sunday night next week against the Patriots, right?
Yeah, that was a flex. That game was
That's
flex.
Right, that's right. Yeah, Steelers, Dolphins tonight. Kind of interesting. The Steelers need the game. I think the Dolphins' pass are pretty much done. I think there might be mathematically, but it's like almost impossible for them to get a wild card spot. But they've made it interesting. When we come back, Frank Close, 97.3 ESPN.com, Phillies insider. The Phillies make a signing today. They get Adolis García. Now, where does he fit in? Is he even an upgrade over Nick Castellanos? I would say offensively, the last 2 years, Castellanos has probably been the better player. But he's certainly an upgrade offensively. But who's got the higher ceiling? We'll ask Frank coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. 329, our Eagles' first reaction, brought to you by First Bank of Sea Isle City. This season, score big with First Bank of Sea Isle. From savings to mortgages, we're on your team, helping you reach the end zone. First Bank of Sea Isle City, your hometown bank, your winning play. All of our Eagles' reactions today, the Eagles win. They do it in dominating fashion. They beat a Raiders team that's pretty bad. So, again, what do you take from it? Not much, right? Other than you did what you had to do. By the way, the Eagles will play the Commanders this weekend, and the Commanders have decided to shut down Jaden Daniels for the last 3 games. So Marcus Mariota.
Oh, another former Eagles backup quarterback.
Yeah, they beat Wentz this year. They've now beat Pickett, and now they'll play Mariota.
My goodness.
Anybody else on that list?
Josh McCown still playing? No.
He's calling plays for somebody, isn't he?
Yeah, he is calling plays.
All right, Frank Close, 97.3 ESPN.com, our Phillies insider. Well, the Phillies made a move today. We'll get into that right now. That's live, 97.3 ESPN, as Frank Close is back. It's been they got Schwarber back last week. They re-signed him. That was the big move. Now the peripherals, Frank. Let's get your take and thoughts on the move today. 1 year, $10 million, and they bring in a right-handed hitting outfielder, Adolis García, who on the surface, if you just look at his numbers, would say, is this really an offensive upgrade over the right-handed right fielder you had a year ago? Your thoughts?
Well, I think it absolutely is an upgrade. Now, I think it's very, very fair to say Adolis García, he's somebody who really caught the playoffs by fire in 2022. In fact, a lot of us probably weren't watching after the Phillies got ahead of the Phillies making the World Series because we were looking at the other series. But 22, 23, he was a force in the playoffs. And in fact, the 23 World Series after the Phillies got eliminated, he was also very, very good. So I think he's very much a defensive upgrade in right field, and he's an offensive upgrade in right field. I think even though he had a couple down years, if you look at his numbers last year, 2.7 WAR, still a decent enough year. And I think the Phillies are basically doing what they did last year with Max Kepler and saying, well, here's a $10 million deal. Let's see if we can get the old guy back. And, former All-Star, decent defense, has some pop with the bat. And here's the key. He hits from the right side. There is a dearth of right-handed offensive players right now in Major League Baseball. And so if this one works out, I think it has a chance to pay off handsomely. It's possible it doesn't work out as well, but I think this is a really nice player. We talked about him, Mike, at the trade deadline last year as somebody that might be able to give some pop to this Phillies lineup from the right side, which they haven't got. I think at the upside, he can be that number 4 hitter. I know, Mike, you've talked about it a lot. Alec Boehm is not that guy to hit fourth from the right side. He at his best, I think he could slot into that slot of the lineup. And if he doesn't work out as much, he doesn't work out as much. But this is just 1 year. He was non-tendered by the Texas Rangers. They don't have to give up any prospects to sign him. So I think this is good. And by the way, too, that also gets another right-handed bat off the board if they're hoping to unload Nick Castellanos to somebody.
Well, a couple things on that. One, you mentioned he is a far better defensive player than Nick Castellanos. So even if you are getting a swap of offensive players, he is a significantly better offensive player. I guess the one question I would ask defensive player, the one question I would ask defensively, he has played center field in the past. He is mainly a right fielder. Do you look at him as a right fielder here?
I do, and the reason why is I think he's got a really good arm, and I think you want your best arm in right field. So I think that would be why I would want him in right field. Plus, probably with Justin Crawford and Brandon Marsh on the roster, I would take one of those two over him in center field anyway.
Okay, so if you bring in Garcia, it is not as a platoon guy with Marsh. You would see him as an everyday guy, and he's in right field. Marsh and Kemp in left, and Crawford in center? Or do the Phillies view Crawford as more of a left fielder, and are they on the look for someone to play center?
That's a good question, and I don't have the answer to that. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities with the players the Phillies have right now. Doesn't mean that that's not going to change between now and spring training. So maybe be a matter of opportunity. I mean, the Phillies were interested in bringing Harrison Bader back. Some thought maybe the market would be too expensive, but if you look at some of the way that a lot of these right-handed bats for the outfield are coming off the board through some creative trades and whatnot. I mean, the Brewers just made a trade that netted the Kansas City Royals the outfielder that they might have wanted Bader to be.
Yeah.
So as these names come off the board, they signed Lane Thomas too, by the way, the former Nat. So a lot of these
Yeah,
teams
if anybody thought that the Royals might be a match for Castellanos, they have basically they went out and got 2 outfielders. I don't know. Do you see the Phillies finding I mean, apparently there was reports last week that they were begging teams to take Castellanos, couldn't find a taker. I'm assuming they would just release him if push comes to shove. But do you anticipate them finding a taker for Castellanos?
If they do, the net outcome isn't much different. I mean, you probably are looking at trading him for a high upside Class A player and taking on most of the money anyway. I mean, to me, I think Nick Castellanos is going to go play in Miami. I think that's where he's going to fit personally, just because I think the Marlins need some bodies, and I think that being that he's a hometown guy, maybe in Miami he could get a little something back.
Yeah, the teams that I've kind of see him going to are a team like Miami, a Pittsburgh, a Kansas City was a fit. I don't think they are anymore, but a team that doesn't have a lot of money wants to get a guy, and then they'll try to trade him, at the deadline.
Yeah, I agree. Or maybe a Cincinnati. I mean, he had success in Cincinnati before. We know the Reds were interested in Schwarber, so maybe they would take him as a DH if they can't get anybody else. But I think if he was straight released,
I don't know, man. You're Cincinnati. Aren't you trying to get like a winning culture? That's the problem. Like Castellanos going to like a team like the Dodgers or something. Like, I think they understand the Phillies are trying to get rid of him because they feel that he's not a great clubhouse guy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But, Castellanos kind of thrived there before. That's the only reason I would suggest the Reds, and that would be if the Reds lost out on more players than Kyle Schwarber. So
it's definitely a market size that I think would fit for him, though, right? A team that just doesn't have the budget.
Right. He would be a low-cost signing. The Phillies right now are probably saying, $10 million, not a big deal to take a shot on somebody who could be our right fielder. Other teams might be saying, hey, $3 million? I don't know. I mean, Phillies are going to pay most of this deal no matter what, if not all of it. So, will it be $3 million plus a Class A prospect that hasn't worked out so far, but maybe the Phillies could play with? I don't, that's the type of deal I think it's going to end up being. The Phillies pay $17 million of his 20 and maybe get a fringe prospect.
Well, one of the problems has been, the Phillies apparently don't want to attach to a prospect in the trade. So, in other words, a team say, we'll take Castellanos, but you got to pay him and you got to give us a prospect. The Phillies have been kind of unwilling to do that, right?
Yeah, but Miami needs to spend money for the luxury tax purposes. They don't look kindly upon teams who take revenue from the revenue sharing and don't spend it. So I think they're going to need to spend some money for spending money's sake. So maybe they'd be willing to at least pay a few million bucks out of a Castellanos deal. But you're right. I mean, he's not going to be a high ticket item for whoever acquires him in whatever way they acquire him.
So García, interestingly enough, against right-handed pitching, 241. Against left-handed pitching, 226 in his career. Is this a right-handed bat that you can see hitting behind Harper and being in that 4-hole, something that Castellanos was not really good at?
I think he could. I think that's his ceiling, right? Now, if you look at his OPS the last couple seasons, it's in the 6s. But, you go back a year beyond that, he was 836. And so I feel like he was getting on base enough. And I was doing a little bit of research today trying to figure out, where he fits in on this lineup. And they said he was tending to try to mess with his swing, to try to pull more balls. And I think it was Steve Phillips of MLB Network who basically said, look, he just needs to be himself. And at Citizens Bank Park, he can be himself. And he could find that that stroke again that he seems to have lost the last couple of years. And so, if you have a good hitting coach, and the Phillies do with Kevin Long, and maybe he's able to get that swing right again. So I think some of these investments the Phillies make are with the "I'll fix him" mentality, right? You saw
this
the Phillies.
This is definitely a better "I'll fix it" than I mean, the Kepler thing just never made sense. This at least, okay, right-handed, plays right field, had hit 39 homers 2 years ago. You can understand this deal a lot more than Kepler.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the right-handed bat was something they absolutely needed, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the roster. I mean, the Phillies have been rumored to perhaps be willing to trade Alec Boehm. I personally think every time Dave Dombrowski points out that Otto Kemp could be an everyday player, it makes me think that Alec Boehm might be moved, and then Kemp is going to be sort of the fill-in at third base until their top prospect in the infield, Aiden Miller, is ready. So. Yeah. I think a lot of that could depend on what other moves take place. Boehm going into the last year of his contract will be a free agent after next year. Do they want to try to get something for him and clear the money that they would owe him to give them some flexibility? And the fact that even maybe Matt Strahm might be available, and so the Phillies could save some money there too. I think that'll give them some wiggle room to maybe try some other things. So I wouldn't be shocked if there are other moves there. And maybe they bring a Bader back, and the outfield is then nice and extra complete.
Well, I'll tell you, if they could get Bader back, and I don't know where you feel on the money. It might have been you. Did you tweet 3 years, 45 based on the Yastrzemski deal? Was that you?
I was thinking going into this offseason 3 and 39, and so I don't know if I think 45 is still a little bit steep.
Right, but after Yastrzemski signed for what he signed, does that kind of reset what Bader might be looking for?
I think some people felt it did, but then the Royals, for example, made these trades. I think the market for who's willing to spend good money on those positions is actually smaller even since. So, and you only need one to overpay. But I think that, by the way, there's a reason. And I thought Bader was a really nice player for the Phillies last year, but there's a reason he's been on 6 teams, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the problem.
That's my question. So if it's a lack of consistency over the long term, that might cause some people to pause, and the price could come down.
Yeah, that's the problem with Bader is you saw him for maybe the best 50-game run he ever went on, but he has not been that player. So what do you pay that guy? Now, that being said, he's a very good defensive center fielder. But if he turns back into the player that he's been over the course of his career, now you have a right fielder who's hit or miss offensively. Now you have pretty good outfield, though. If you had Garcia playing right, Bader playing center, Crawford playing left, I guess you could do a Marsh-Garcia platoon in right field, although, as I mentioned, Garcia's splits are better against right-handed pitching than they've been against left-handed pitching.
Yeah, then you have to pick your spots, I guess, to use a Marsh. I mean, me personally, and I've said this on the show many times, I'm not a fan of having 3 platoons on your roster because then that cuts into your bench. Because once you flop the platoon, then you don't have anybody left. Yeah. So,
not ideal.
Maybe
I agree.
Marsh is a trade candidate. I think the Phillies need to be a little creative here, and not get too attached to the beloved players on the team, and keep them even when maybe it makes more sense not to keep them.
Yep, and then. What is your thoughts on trading Stott? Do you think that's a possibility?
I think it is if they can get somebody they don't need to platoon. I think to me that's, again, resolving one of those platoons. Obviously, if you could get Ketel Marte from the Diamondbacks, I know the Phillies were one of the teams rumored to have expressed interest. If you can get a player like that, then, of course, you find room for that player. But, I think they're open-minded about it. I think they really did. Of all those platoons, me personally, I thought that was a pretty solid one when you had Sosa and Stott in that platoon at second base. But then, you know what? If you're able to switch that for a permanent solution at second base, then maybe a Sosa plays into third base if you do pull the trigger on an Alec Boehm trade. So there's a lot of different things the Phillies could do here, and I think a lot of that will be dictated by the marketplace and who wants to make a deal and who's available. But I do think that resolving all those platoons will be a good thing.
All right, so we'll see what happens with Boehm. and that's a guy that could still be moved. Castellanos obviously looks like he is on the way out, and we would imagine that he will not be back, whether they trade him, which, I mean, quite frankly, I find to be very unlikely to find a taker for him. Why? In other words, if you're a team, you know the Phillies are going to release him. Why would you give them anything when you know they just signed someone to replace him? So you know they're going to release him. So why would you give them anything? I mean, unless you felt like, well, we really want this guy. We don't want someone else to have a chance to sign him. But I can't imagine there's going to be a large contingency of people lining up to bring in Nick Castellanos.
Yeah, so maybe this will resolve itself sooner than later, just because it's not helping anybody by letting this drag on, and the longer it does, teams are just going to say, yeah, I'll just wait till they release him.
Yeah. All right, Frank. Well, we'll see what the next move is. We would imagine this outfield has to start shaping up at some point. You know, the calendar flips pretty quick to the new year, and then we're just less than 2 months away from spring training down there in Clearwater, Florida. Frank, appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Got my plane tickets ready.
I'm looking at mine. I have to check out the prices here and my dates. I got my dates already set, 16th to the 22nd there, PG.
Oh, I got to write that down.
All right, we'll see. Yeah, the García move, it's literally a lateral numerical move with Castellanos. It is a defensive upgrade, no question. But I think the ceiling's higher for García than it is Castellanos. I think Castellanos is a guy that you pretty much at this point, you know, you're getting like 260, 15 to 19 homers, just not a good outfielder at this point anymore. There's the problem with him.
And I think Garcia is the type of player that the fan base can get behind.
I definitely think he'll be very popular.
Very
here.
stale with Castellanos.
It is a different, and it's something different, but it's also a guy that you can at least try in the middle of the lineup.
Yeah.
Because Castellanos, couldn't hit fourth. You can at least try García in the 4-hole to open the season. Now, I don't know that he's going to do the job, but he hit fourth last year more than any other spot in the lineup. He has hit fourth mostly in his career. That's a place that you could start him out on opening day. You couldn't do that with Nick Castellanos. All right, coming up on the other side, is the dynasty done? It's our unsportsmanlike moment of the day coming up next.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
All right, our unsportsmanlike moment of the day. It's brought to you by Whitehorse RV Center. Find fall closeout savings on 2025s and select pre-owned RVs. Shop now before they're gone at Whitehorse RV. Your RV adventure starts here. Our unsportsmanlike moment of the day with Evan Canty and Michelle. Is it the end of the dynasty? And if it is, are they going to be able to redo it? Here's what they said this morning on Unsportsmanlike. Or not. Either way. Good debate.
Well, yeah, the dynasty.
All right, try it again.
I mean, it's hard to project that they're going to be able to have a second act with Andy Reid being in his late 60s. That's the biggest concern, right? Because, I mean, you're talking about the 2007 year for the Patriots and how they lost to the New York Giants in Super Bowl 42 and missed out on an undefeated season. Bill Belichick was 55 years old when that happened. Andy Reid is 68. So there's a big difference in terms of the amount of runway that we can anticipate for the head coach. And if you're telling me that the head coach doesn't have the same type of shelf life as Bill Belichick did once upon a time in New England, then I have to be skeptical.
That's an interesting take by Canty. And you don't even think of it because you just see Andy and you see him over there and you just assume that Andy's just there. He's 68 years old. How many more years is Andy Reid going to be? Forget like what level of coach he is. Even if he's coaching at the highest level, how many more years is Andy Reid going to do this, right? And if that's the case, you know, do you go to like the assistant? Matt Nagy's on that staff, right? I mean, he's a guy who's been a head coach. Normally, you go to the next guy, and you saw what happened with New England. They went to who was the guy they hired last year and then fired him after the 1 year?
He's out of
the
the
linebacker, Mayo,
yeah.
Gerard Mayo.
Oh, Gerard Mayo, yeah.
So, you know, and the end of the Belichick wasn't going well for a couple of years. Then they went to Mayo. Now they're back. They've already bounced back. But that being said, without Andy Reid, the Reid-Mahomes thing, it'll be an interesting dynamic because we never really saw the Brady never played with another coach in New England. He went someplace else, Tampa, obviously, and ended up winning the Super Bowl. Mahomes, not to say that the guy's going to, like, stink or anything, but he's coming off the ACL. How many more years is he going to be paired up with Andy Reid? I think that's a fair question to ask. And they got cap problems out the yin-yang. They are like $40-some million over the cap this offseason.
And guess what? Josh Allen, it's now your time, buddy boy.
Yeah, that's something that Evan Cohen was talking about this morning. Like, if not now, then when?
Come back down from 21-0 yesterday.
No Mahomes, no Lamar in the playoffs for Josh Allen. They got to be, this is it. Do or die for the Buffalo Bills. All right, when we come back, we will check in with Adam Kaplan as we look back at that Eagles win. What impressed him about the win on Sunday, explaining the win over the Raiders next.
Home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill, 97.3 ESPN.
Sounds great, guys.
WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City.
Pickett in the gun. Mostert to his right. Slot to the far side. Lone receiver to the near side. Back goes Pickett. Here comes the rush again. And he is hit. And he almost fumbles the football. Another
BG.
sack for Brandon Graham.
BG got him again.
2 for Brandon Graham.
As heard on 97.3 ESPN, Merrill Reese, Mike Quick on the call. Brandon Graham, 2 sacks. Will turn back the clock for him. The defense pitches a shutout. We'll get into their role in the win. We're going to explain this Eagles win over the Raiders, 31-0. A very efficient and, probably one of the better performances for the offense all season long. 12 of 15, 3 touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. And, of course, Adam Kaplan is in for Jeff Mosher. Today's Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. And, hey, 31-0. It should be this easy every week, Adam, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I try to predict these. I couldn't do it. Now, obviously, we all picked on our pregame show, myself, Greg Cosell, and Jeff Mosher. We all picked the Eagles, and we didn't think it would be a problem. But it's hard to predict blowouts. I was like, look, 12.5, depending on which book you were looking at, is a lot of points. We know how the Eagles offensively have been this season, very disappointing. But the Raiders come into town, windy conditions. They're a dome team from out west, 3 different time zones, 1 p.m. Eastern. They played like they were traveling. They just didn't play well. The win was a factor, Mike. But the big thing, which really surprised me, is that actually there are 3 things. The amount of Hurts under center, the amount of 13 personnel, Mike. They had 3 tight ends on the field, Mike. 4 plays on the first drive. That's not something that they do. A lot to 12 personnel. They came to this game knowing that they got to get the running game going. This is very clear. We thought that was going to be the case coming in, but this is crazy in terms of formation variation and use of personnel. And they were committed to it. The decent result. It wasn't great, but better. The last 2 games, you obviously had the big Barkley run, but overall better than it had been. But they were so committed to running the football, and boy, did they control the clock.
Yeah, obviously you talk about the different formations, but it helps when you actually, are able to execute things as well. They committed to running early, but they were able to run because they executed up front, and that set up a lot of big games in the passing game as well.
Yeah, that was the thing about the weather. Now, you just didn't know. Hurts hit Smith on that beautiful throw. He had Brown for the touchdown on the crosser, which is a great throw. He let him inside. It was a timing throw. Goddard had to drop the touchdown pass. There were a couple of passes where Hurts didn't put it on the correct shoulder, or he was a little bit late, but still, overall, he had a really good, solid game in a game where they didn't have to throw because they got up big early, and they dominated. It was also good to see Dallas Goedert, who's really had a really good season. He hadn't scored a touchdown in a while, the first ones in 6 games, but his usage has been up, and he's done a great job. I mean, he and Hurts, myself, Andrew Checo, and Jeff saw this, Goddard and Hurts in training camp. But we wondered, okay, we're going to be let down again? No. Goddard has been a meaningful part of the passing game and certainly needed to be.
Yeah, we looked at the numbers on Jalen Hurts, by the way. You talk about Goddard. He was 6 for 6, 71 yards, 3 touchdowns between the hash marks. So he was working the middle of the field with a lot of success there. 63% of his passes, on the season against the Chargers, last week between the hash marks. So he improved there. The run game, as we mentioned, they had 183 yards on 47 carries. They ran the ball 47 times, but that's a product of the lead there. And you talked about Goddard having the big game. He's the one guy who had the drop in the game. Other than that, Hurts was nearly flawless in throwing the football. And you saw a lot of different variations in creativity, too.
Yeah, you know what? The thing, and I mentioned this on a post-game show, you'll know when Hurts is doing well, when he's decisive. he kind of throws angry a little bit. It's like, hey, man, I got it. I'm feeling it. I've seen Kirk Cousins go through this. When Cousins is on a roll, now Hurts didn't have to throw the ball a lot, but when he did, he was mostly decisive. That's all you need him to be. The pass concepts are really good. They also did some no huddle. Mike, I think they did around a dozen or a little bit less of no huddle, which you like. They did a zone read play. I mean, Sirianni and Patullo, they brought it. I mean, you could say all you want. It's the Raiders. That's fine, but that's not really the point. You're looking for advanced concepts. They did it against the Chargers. They didn't turn over like that. They would have won the game. And then they beat down on the Raiders. They'll play the Commandos this Saturday in Washington, who won't have Daniels. Things are looking up for the Eagles here. But the other thing I want to add before we get to defense, that protection was good when Hurts dropped back. You really like that. The also part of this, Mike, is they designed a number of runs for him, probably the most this season. These were not scrambles. These were actually designed runs. It wasn't just the gun run where they go empty and they go four wide and he runs up the middle. That's not what I mean. They actually had, though there were some of those, there were a bunch of design runs. That was good to see, and it's just kind of funny how you could see what they were doing here. We felt they would kind of come in trying to run, but it was like, okay, well, they'll throw it when they feel like they need to and take a shot play here and there. But it was very clear to me, Mike, they came in saying, we're going to run the ball, and we're going to see if the Raiders could stop us, and they couldn't.
They couldn't. By the way, Eagles under center, 30 times in the game yesterday. So a lot of under center stuff as well, and I think that maybe helped Saquon Barkley out in the run game as well. Second week in a row for him over 75 yards. He had more yards yesterday than the entire Raider team. That's because the defense let's get into the defense here. What were some of the things that stood out about why this defense was so good? And I get it, Kenny Pickett, the Raiders, yada, yada, yada. But they're an NFL team that has won games, not a lot. But listen, they played Denver, pretty tough the week before.
That's right. Mike, when they lost at home to Chicago, the defense was awful against the run. They just didn't have the correct energy. They didn't play with great leverage. Had a lot of mental errors that game. And obviously, after a slow start against the run against the Chargers, they shut them down and they were dominant for three quarters. This is just another game where they really weren't tested. They did it without Jalen Carter. That's actually very important. I love that they were well rested. Time of possession was almost 2-1. Mike, it's crazy. This is. You probably know the game was about 2.5 hours, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. I remember
3.5.
Well, excuse me, 3.5. I remember. Well, yeah, technically from.
It was over at 3:36. It was over at 3:36. Yeah, like 2.5 hours.
Right, it's actually 2.5 hours is what I said at the top here. Yes. But when I texted Jeff, I said, "Hey, man, this game's going to end at like 3:45, 3:50. Get ready." And then it ended before 3:30. I was just dumbfounded. Like, how does this happen? Well, Mike, here's what you love about defense. No one had more than 39 snaps on defense. Mike, that's unheard of. You're typically around 55 to 60 on an average. Jalen Hurts was terrific. Once again, he continues to improve. He's been more of a run defender, but he's really getting better as a pass rusher. This is insane that Brandon Graham had 7 snaps and 2 sacks. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, Jalen Phillips was a factor again. Quality rushes, and I can't say this is the big story, but it's a good positive story. But Dory Jackson continues to play better. He's getting more confidence. As one league source said to me, watch his tape, you'll see his swagger. You can actually see it. I'm like, wow, okay. Mm-hmm. Well, they're playing with great energy right now. They've got it going on. They'll get Carter back by the playoffs. We just don't know exactly when he'll be back. They're feeling pretty good about it right now. They played well. They'll be playing Marcus Mariota this week, and they'll feel good about it. So, overall, this is a really good team win. I know it was the Raiders, and they don't control who they play, but the execution on both sides of the football was great. To sum it up, Mike, I like that Patullo continued to bring new stuff out here. 21 Pony, which is 2 running backs. You saw it. You've seen it in recent weeks. They did more of it. I just wish they'd get Shipley the ball. I can't have everything here, but I wish they could Shipley the ball. Kenny Bigsby, I don't know. Look, at least they used him. I understand that he had to play because they pulled Barkley early. Don't get carried away on 3.4 yards per carry. Remember, that includes short yardage. The context matters here. He looked explosive in a 13-yard run. He looked really good. I continue to say they got to use him more as a changeup to Barkley. Why can't you get him 5 to 7 carries a game normally? I just don't know why, but good that he had 17 because it was a blowout. And it's always good when the other team only had 7 first downs, you're probably going to be getting the ball back a lot to run the football. And we'll see if there are any pop-up injuries. Tomorrow's the first injury report after the walkthrough, but they didn't have anyone listed in game with an injury.
All right, Adam Kaplan, they're going to get ready for Washington, who obviously announced today that Jaden Daniels will be shut down the rest of the year, so it is Marcus Mariota. They won this week against the Giants. I think they've won 2 straight games, actually, Washington here. They played you in the NFC Championship game 1 year ago, and obviously their season has gone off the rails. So what is the practice getting ready for them this week on yet another short week?
Yeah, actually, by the way, Washington, Mike, just a small correction. They got smoked. They didn't win 2 in a row. They got smoked. They got shut out in Minnesota 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that's right. They lost 31-0, just like the Eagles beat the Raiders,
Right. If you watch the Hard Knocks, that's when Ertz tore his ACL. It's so heartbreaking to see Zach go down like that, non-contact injury. But, what they'll do is tomorrow's a walkthrough, which we knew was going to happen. You can't, with how long the season is, Sirianni really has a good feel for his team. Wednesday, they'll have a practice. Thursday, they'll have a practice. And then they have a walkthrough on Friday before they fly Friday afternoon they'll fly, I think, to Adolis. But remember, the game's in Landover, Maryland. That stadium's the absolute worst. I don't know if you've ever been there, Mike. The worst sight lines in the National Football League to watch a game. It's so low. It's really difficult to see. And it's in the middle of nowhere, the way that they have it. It's not like around anything. Kind of like the link. Okay, South Philly, shopping, whatever. You have some stuff around there. If Xfinity Live, but so it's a shorter week. It's a game they need. They're trying to. Their magic number's 1 to win the division, which we know they're going to win. Dallas somehow choked last night. They should have won that game against the Vikings, and things are looking good for them. I know. Look, they don't control their schedule, Mike, but they're looking very good right now with what has happened to the Packers with Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
Mike, with no Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. A, he tore his ACL. B, they're not making it. And Andy might wind up having his first losing season with the Chiefs. If they don't win their final 3 games, he'll have his first losing season as a Chiefs head coach. And they're also not making the playoffs only for the second team.
Yeah.
The second time is during Andy's tenure, which started in 2013. But it's really remarkable. This season has been so up and down around the National Football League. And honestly, Mike, it's completely wide open. The Rams got their secondary got absolutely housed. I give Stafford credit, who is going to get my MVP vote, as it looks now for Pro Football Writers Association awards. But right now, Mike, it's completely wide open. If you get in, you got a shot.
Yeah, well, the NFC is going to be wild. Other than that NFC South winner, the Carolina-Tampa winner, you probably can make a case that all 6 teams have a shot.
You do, yes. And look, Green Bay now without Parsons, it's going to be hard enough for them. And you saw what happened to their defense. Boy, that was a great game, by the way. I give the Broncos credit. Right now, Mike, you'd have to say Denver's the best team. They have a super long. Well, we're talking about if we were just grading the teams, Denver right now has got to be the best team at 12-2. They win dangerously. They win a lot of tight games, but their defenses, them and the Texans. I still don't buy the Texans. I know my man Kerry Rhodes on Fox Sports Radio is killing me over it. I'm not buying their offense. Defensively, they're elite. Josh Allen is unbelievable. What he did yesterday, I don't have sour grapes, but I did pick the Patriots to win the game. I cannot believe what happened yesterday. I mean, I give Josh Allen's ridiculous. The way he brings the team back. They're not really that good defensively this year, but it's wide open, Mike, like I said.
Yeah. Well, no Mahomes, possibly no Lamar Jackson. This has got to be the year for Josh Allen.
This is crazy. Isn't that crazy? If you would have told me that before the season started, I would have thought you were on drugs. There's no way. But it realistically happened. I mean, I don't like Pittsburgh at all. I mean, they should win tonight, but I don't think they're very good. But the teams, I don't know about you, Mike, as we finish this off. Teams I missed on were New England, Jacksonville, and Chicago.
Oh, Jacksonville, definitely. Jacksonville, definitely. I think everybody looked at them, and Liam Cohen coming in, kind of an unknown guy. Yeah. And then Chicago was kind of a wild card. They're one that I mentioned a little bit because if Ben Johnson could click with Caleb Williams, and the funny part is Caleb hasn't really been. It's not like he's taken this huge step forward, but just having him, be the play caller there, they obviously have been a disaster offensively, basically in the history of that franchise. Right, the Bears have just never been good. But hey. Real quick, I know you got to get out of here. Andy Reid, 68 years old. How many more years for Andy? That will be something interesting to see.
It has to be talked about.
Right? The next evolution of this Chief. They're $45 million over the cap, by the way.
Yeah, well, cap you can fix. I mean, it's not hard to clean it up with restructures, but their big problem is they did not have a good offseason, Mike, in free agency.
They haven't drafted well in a couple of years.
No, the draft feature's really good. Who played with Matt Nagy at Delaware, but they had a rough offseason. They overaddressed their offensive line. It really didn't help them. Mahomes had let's save the injury to the side here, but Mahomes didn't have a good season. He didn't play great last year. But he was the magic man. Whatever, he was kind of like, remember when John Elway, when we were growing up?
Yep.
John Elway, they'd have a bad 3 quarters and bring the team back. Mahomes was doing that for years. Couldn't do it this season.
All right, Adam Kaplan, of course. We got the Eagles and the Commanders. We'll be talking about that later on this week right here with Football at 4. Thanks, Adam.
You got it.
He jumps in for Mosher, who will be on tomorrow's Football at 4 for you here on the Sports Bash Live. And Football at 4 is brought to you by Gallery Bar, Book, and Games, the place to be this football season. What's going on here today? The place is packed.
Yeah, it's got something at the bar.
Something's going on over there.
A little maybe work convention going on.
Something's happening. You got the Dolphins and Steelers tonight. Real quick, he mentioned that, you're getting ready for the – and by the way, the Commanders lost 31-0 last week, and this week they've been – why did I think they had won back-to-back? I think they won the week before.
They won the week before, yeah.
So, but they lost 31-0 last week to Minnesota, and Minnesota won again this week, by the way. They beat Dallas. Because of that, Washington, they've now been eliminated. Dallas, with a loss, with a Philadelphia win on Saturday, Dallas would be officially eliminated. So the game on Saturday for Philly is interesting because that would be the first time in 20 years that a team would win the NFC East back-to-back seasons. So they can get that out of the way here. I know Tyrell, who's producing the video show today, he's probably back there going nuts because Adam Kaplan just said he thinks that Denver is the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, I think either Denver or Buffalo at this point of the season. And Buffalo's still alive for that AFC East because of yesterday's win.
They made that NFC East very interesting now and winning that game at Foxborough yesterday. Now, Tyrell tells me the Commanders have lost 8 in a row. Why did I think that they won a game recently outside of yesterday?
I believe they won the first premiere of Hard Knocks. I think it was a win, wasn't it?
They're 4-10. On the season.
Oh, it was a 1-point loss to Denver, 27-26.
That was the game they went for it in overtime on the 2-point conversion. They missed it.
Okay.
I thought that they won that game.
No. Think that
they actually tied a franchise record for 8 straight losses. If they would have lost yesterday, it would have been a franchise record.
Gotcha. So they beat the Giants yesterday.
Right.
They're terrible this year, but they shut down Daniels today. They're 4-10. Does anybody look at this game as a tricky spot?
I mean, you always have to be kind of cautious with a division rival.
Right.
And you mentioned the revenge.
Well, I feel like
season.
the Eagles play the Commanders on a Saturday like every year, and they always lose this game. Doesn't it feel like they play Washington on a Saturday and like it never goes well for them? And just playing Washington has always given them – it's like the one year the Eagles went to the Super Bowl in 2022. The one game they lost was that Sunday night game against Washington, right? It was a Monday night game or a Sunday night. It was a
Monday night game a couple years ago, yeah.
Right. It just feels like a bad Washington team always gives you some problems. Now, this team, I don't know. When they went to the NFC Championship game last year, they went out and got Debo. Then they added a bunch of older guys, and that team was just broken down. But they have twice now. They have 2 games against Philly in the last 3 weeks here. And, they went to the NFC Championship game, lost that game. They could definitely play spoiler here. So these are tricky spots, even though you're playing a bad team.
And Week 18, you don't know what that game's going to be like. I mean, things could be wrapped up by then.
You could be in a position, right, where Dallas, if you win this week, Dallas is eliminated. So then you have the 2 weeks left. Now you're playing for seeding. Here's the seeding situations.
Now, are you, again, the 1 seed is probably going to need a lot of help.
Yeah,
so are you just better off resting some guys in Week 18 no matter what?
Well, they do that almost every year anyway. So
here you go. To clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC, if all of the 5 things happen, the Rams lose twice of their last 3.
I'm going to pull up the Rams schedule for you.
Now, you actually
I have it right here. Seattle, Atlanta, and Arizona. They would have to lose 2 of those games.
And McMullen talked about this in his segment. He said you want the Rams to win. You're rooting for the Rams.
Well, here's why. Because these are the scenarios for you to be the number 1 seed. The Rams have to lose twice, and so does Seattle. And Seattle plays the Rams on Thursday night. So somebody is losing that game.
Right.
The problem is they would then have to lose another game.
Right. Who would you rather lose in that scenario?
Well, you want, as John said, you want the Rams to probably win.
Because you have the tiebreaker over the Rams.
Yeah.
Correct.
You don't have it over
anything
Seattle.
over Seattle.
San Francisco needs to lose twice, or San Francisco will have to lose to Chicago, or San Francisco would lose to Seattle, and the Eagles would win strength of victory over San Francisco.
By the way, San Francisco finishes at Indianapolis, then home against Chicago, home against Seattle.
Or San Francisco loses the NFC West. So these are the things that need to happen for Philly, and then this would also need to happen. Chicago has to lose twice, or Chicago loses once, and Philly, Chicago, L.A. or Seattle are in a 3-way tie, and then Philly would win the 3-way tie there.
Chicago finishes the year with home against Green Bay, at San Francisco, home against Detroit.
Man, that's a tough 3 weeks for Chicago.
Or Chicago loses to San Fran, and San Francisco then loses to Seattle, and then Philly, Chicago, and San Francisco are in a 3-way tie. The Eagles would win the strength of victory over San Francisco.
Yeah, it's not confusing.
Plus, they need Green Bay to lose one more time, and that is how Philadelphia could be the number 1 seed.
That's why the Black Friday game, that was for the 1 seed probably. Looking back on it, right? That was probably for the 1 seed. That was the Eagles' chance at the 1 seed, that loss.
Well, them losing to Chicago added that whole –
yeah.
But – the loss that really hurts him is you lose to the Giants earlier this year.
Right.
You lose to that Denver game that you had in the fourth quarter.
The Denver
Dallas
game, you had it, yeah.
Yeah, the Dallas and Denver game are 2 games that you have at hand in the fourth quarter, and, you can't hold on to those games. But now you're 2 games back of the 1 seed, and you need those teams to lose twice. So even though you have the tiebreaker, you're 2 back with 3 to go. Those aren't great odds. By the way, to get the 2 seed, Philadelphia needs Chicago to lose 3 times.
Ooh.
Or Chicago loses twice and Detroit wins 3 times. Or they need Green Bay to lose twice, and that's how you could be the 2 seed.
That's asking for a lot.
So you're kind of locked into this 3 spot right now.
Which means week 18 you could probably get some rest.
Possible. All right, coming up, the Nuggets. Earnshaw's in the house with today's edition of Nick's Nuggets here on the Sports Bash. We're live at the Fanatic Sportsbook. Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua, they're fighting this weekend. That fight is on Netflix, but you can watch it right here at the Fanatic Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. All right, Monday Night Football right here tonight, and you can listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, college football playoffs this weekend, they begin, and you can listen to the college football playoffs on Rock 104.1. We'll have the Rock 104.1 college football triple header for you. It all starts at noon. That's the game of the day, probably, right? The noon game, which is Miami and Texas A&M.
That's probably the game with the most consequences to it.
Right, because the 2 games after that are up against the NFL. It's Tulane and Ole Miss at 4, and then the 8 o'clock game is James Madison and Oregon, and then you have the 2 NFL games, the Eagles at 4, and then the Bears and the Packers.
We know they did that on purpose.
Man, well, I think when they saw the NFL games, they put the best game they had in the early slot.
Exactly, they did it on purpose.
Yeah. But all 3 of the college football playoff games will be on Rock 104.1 on Saturday, and the Eagles will be on 97.3, followed by the Bears and Packers. You got 2 huge NFL games this weekend. That Bears-Packers, now the Eagles game's not huge, but obviously if they win the division. All right, when we come back, it's the Nuggets right here on the Sports Bash.
Merry Christmas from all of us at 97.3 ESPN.
The most wonderful time of the year. Ho, 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 ho.
South Jersey's home for Eagles football.
All right, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Live video. You can watch the show, as always, streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Like, share, subscribe, be a part of the show. Big crowd here today. What is going on over here? There's like a ton of people over there.
I see some martinis over there,
Ooh.
though.
All right, it's time for the Nuggets. Nick Earnshaw's back with today's edition of Nick's Nuggets. You can check out Earnshaw Radio on all social media platforms. And, of course, he is the producer of the Locker Room Weekends on 97.3 ESPN. What's going on, Nick?
What's going on, Mike? What's going on, PG? Sounds like a good time over there at the Fanatic Sportsbook, from what I gather. So, nice little victory Monday after the Birds win, but also a little hot stove. It might be cold outside, but the stove is hot in the baseball world. Phillies, make a move, make a splash. Not a splash, I shouldn't say a splash. But they made a move that's going to be hopefully beneficial to them in the long run. We'll start with the Nuggets right now. And Adolis García signing a 1-year, $10 million contract with the Philadelphia Phillies. You are going to hope you get the 22-23 version of Adolis García. That's the guy you want, because over the last couple of years has not been great offensively. Still has some pop. Hopefully in a hitter's ballpark, like Citizens Bank Park, he has more home runs next year. But it got me thinking. It got my mind turning after they signed him, right? What else could you do in the outfield? So I want to pose a would-you-rather question to you, Mike Gill, Cheap Seats Pete, and Josh, okay? I'm going to give you 3 outfield scenarios for the Phillies, and tell me which one you would enjoy and like the most, all right? You ready? First one, left field, a Marsh-Kemp duo platooning in left. Crawford in center, right field Garcia full-time. Also, our next one, left field, Crawford. Center field, you bring back Bader. Right field, Garcia. Next one, final one. Crawford in left, Robert in center, and right field, Garcia. Now, the rumors are swirling around Luis Robert once again, according to The Athletic, and as well as Harrison Bader. Todd Zalecki put out that there still could be interest in Harrison Bader making a return. So what say you? Out of those 3 combos, which is the most intriguing, Mike Gill?
It's a tough one. I mean, intriguing, I guess, would be if you brought in Robert and see if he can, flourish here. I mean, one of the problems in Chicago, he's got nobody to protect him, nobody to help him. There is literally nothing in that lineup around him. He has seen like the least amount of strikes out of every player in baseball. So if he comes here, could he be a guy that hits, 5th? I think they're going to hit Garcia in the 4-hole, actually. I think they're going to bring him in and hit him. Look, last year in Texas, he hit 4th. In his career, he has hit in the 4-hole more than any other spot in the lineup. Now, he has not produced like a 4-hole hitter the last 2 seasons. Previously, he did. He hit 39 homers in 2023.
Yeah. Yep.
He hit 27 homers in 2022. And in 2021, he hit 31 homers. So he has shown the ability to hit for power. And I wonder if he gets the first crack at hitting in that 4-hole behind Bryce Harper this year. And then if you brought Luis Robert in, he's another guy that at one point showed a lot of power. Once he showed that power, then nobody would throw him a pitch. So he has been terrible the last couple of years. He did show a little bit of promise in the second half of last year, but I think that would be – how did you phrase the question?
So what do you think is the most intriguing? Which would be more ideal?
That would be the most intriguing because why? It's the most unknown. I mean, you're getting 2 new guys, both hitting right-handed. Now, Harrison Bader also hits right-handed.
It would be 3.
Well, and Justin Crawford as well. But Crawford was in all 3 scenarios of that you put out there. But that being said, the 2 right-handed hitters, you could literally go Garcia 4, and then you have. Now, Marsh, you didn't put in any of those. He's still signed. I guess
he was in scenario 1, yeah.
Scenario 1.
Oh, as the platoon guy. The most intriguing one, if you got Lewis Robert and played him in center field, you have Garcia in right field, and then you have Justin Crawford in left field. You'd have an entirely new outfield.
Yeah, I would go with scenario one with Marsh. I think Marsh still has a role on this team. So, I mean, obviously with a platoon, he had a terrible month of April. We all know that, but he kind of rebounded pretty well. So if you could find a role for Marsh on this team, I would bring him back.
See, I would go with the opposite of both of you. I want the Bader combination. I don't want Luis Robert. I'm so sick and tired of that rumor. Oh, my God, I'm going to lose my mind if I hear another report that the Phillies are interested in Luis Robert. It's been like how many years now? Trade deadlines, off season. Just make him a Philly already, for goodness sake, at this point. But I would prefer to bring back Bader. If you can find a way to get Bader back on this roster, you put Crawford in left, you move on from Marsh. I don't know. I don't know what Marsh had a nice year after he came back from his injury last year, but I think you can upgrade there. You bring back Bader, you have Garcia, a little bit of pop in right field, and you bring in some youth with Justin Crawford out there in left. Enough with the platoons. I'm so sick and tired of seeing all these platoons. You can platoon second base with Stott and Edmundo Sosa, great, but they got to cut down on these platoons and figure out this outfield because they've had a carousel for how many years now?
Yeah, Weston Wilson. I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him again.
Mm-hmm. Listen, platoons are a way of baseball. We act like the Phillies are the only team that does it. Everybody's doing platoons because they're all trying to maximize guys who aren't all-star level players, and then they're trying to put them in the strongest element they can. Look, Adolis Garcia, the interesting part about him is he's a right-handed hitter that hits better against righties than he does lefties.
I know.
And Marsh hits great against righties as well.
Right, so that platoon, because we talked about that earlier, could you platoon Marsh and Garcia? Doesn't really work out all that well because Garcia hits better against righties than he does lefties. I think if you play Marsh and Kemp in left field. Now, the other thing would be if you were able to trade Bohm and you played Kemp at third base, what do you get back in return for Bohm? That adds some intrigue to this offseason as well.
Yeah, if you move on from Bohm, it frees up some money too. I believe he has $10 million left on his arbitration deal this season, so that'll free up some money for you to bring back like a Bader, right? Put him in center. You have Garcia in right, and then whatever you do in left with probably Crawford. And I think they like Crawford better in left field at this point, and that opens up third base. You could start the season with Kemp over at third, and then why not Aiden Miller later on in the year? Have him start at AAA, get some at-bats under him. If he starts having a really good year at AAA, bring him up during the summer. I know they never want to bring anybody up at all until this year when they have to because they got to bring Crawford up. Well, why not give Aiden Miller a shot this year at some point down the line? That could be a possibility because then you could really move on for Bohm if you think Miller could come up this season or next.
Don't have any problem with that. Last year I actually said I would have rather have had him come up and play shortstop instead of moving Stott over there. Like late in that season
when Turner went down,
when Turner got hurt, I would have played Miller at short and kept Stott at shortstop. But whatever they ended up choosing there, I have no problem with play. Now the question is, when Miller gets to spring training this year, are they going to play him at third base? Are they going to play him at second base? I think that will give us a little bit of – now, who knows if they make a trade of Bohm and then maybe they put him at third base right from day one when they report down there. But, what is his future position going to be? I don't think we really have that answer yet.
No, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to be shortstop because you can't really get out of the Trey Turner contract unless you move Trey Turner around, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So that's what I'm saying. Like maybe you start the year with him in AAA with what position you want him to play going forward in the near future. Third base, if you move on from Bohm, you start Otto Kemp in the season at third. Great. You have your outfield set. You bring back Bader. You trade for Robert, whatever it may be. You move on from Bohm. Crawford, center field set, and right field is now set. And third base is a little bit open. You platoon over at second base.
I think the fact that they got Garcia, though, at least they got a right-handed bat that they can say on opening day, we have a guy who hits right-handed, has power. He's a good right fielder. Hits a Gold Glove level outfielder.
Great right fielder.
Even if you let's be honest, he's not much of an offensive upgrade over Nick Castellanos. No. If you're just going off of the numbers the last 2 years, they've both been pretty average at best. In fact, you can make an argument that Castellanos' numbers have actually been better than Garcia's the last 2 years. Now, he's a significantly better outfielder, okay? But the question is, does Garcia, a change of scenery for him, hitting in this ballpark with this lineup, having better guys around him, does that kind of reinvigorate him, give him some more energy? I think Castellanos is what he is. I think his number's going to keep going down. Can you get a little bounce back from Garcia? And I think that's what the Phillies are taking a shot on.
Yeah, he's an absolute unit, and you hope that he can give you something offensively more than Castellanos did, because Castellanos seems like he's on the downturn, right? Can you get something else, a change of scenery, just a little bit different than, being in Texas, now in Philadelphia, just something new? Maybe it can invigorate his pop, and especially playing in a hitter's ballpark like CBP.
Well, and the one thing I would say is Dombrowski's track record of 1 year prove-it deal guys.
Not great.
We've seen it's not great. It's Joe Ross. It's Jordan Romano. It's Max Kepler.
That's true. That's true.
Yes.
So that gives me a little
The
pause.
Kepler one was always puzzling. He just didn't fit. And there wasn't like Kepler. I mean, he had like a 1 year in Minnesota where he was really, really good. But other than that, you're like, what did you think you were getting from this guy? At least with Garcia, I could say, okay, I can see what you might think you're getting here. This is a guy that for 3 years was one of the more dangerous hitters in baseball. And in 2022, he broke the record for most RBIs in a postseason, so the moment's not too big for him. He's won a World Series. He has a Gold Glove. So I can understand taking a flyer in this situation.
Yeah. Is it just a short-term fix? Well, it is a short-term fix.
1 year deal, yeah.
I mean, is that smart? I guess
well, the question is,
I guess what I'm trying to get at is, your long-term outlook for this outfield.
Right, because if he's a 1 year deal, he's 32 years old. Are you going to bring, where is the next outfielder after Crawford that comes up here? Where's that guy?
Right, and they don't have it right now, essentially. That's why you wonder if they go make a trade. Do they go get a Robert? Do they pay a guy like Bader, who's in his 30s right now, who had a career year last year? What is he going to be when he gets the contract? That's another aspect of this.
There's a lot of guys, they were looking at the kid from Colorado, who's more of a defensive player than he would be an offensive standout. I think this definitely puts Brandon Marsh as a possible trade guy now. If there's a team out there that says, hey, look, we think we can, Marsh doesn't make a lot of money. So a team that can say, hey, we think we could get, Marsh to play 130 games for us and not have to pay him a whole heck of a lot. There might be a team like, that doesn't have a big budget that can go down that route. That route.
Yeah, and the Garcia thing, I'm glad you brought it up, Mike, is the postseason pedigree is there too. That's another aspect. Last year you had the puzzling idea of Kepler as a left-handed bat, but at least Garcia can play a good right field, and also has the postseason pedigree behind him. And if you get the extra stuff out of him, and he has more pop this year, it could be a nice signing. So you just gotta hope. It could be an absolute disaster. That's the other part.
This is the result of signing Kyle Schwarber to $150 million, right? I mean, this may be what they had to do.
This is what they've done over the past few years at this point. So it is what it is. This is where they're at. But the outfield, it looks interesting. I would prefer to bring back Bader this year, though. That would be my ideal.
The Bader thing just worries you because Bader. The Bader thing worries you because of what you're going to have to pay him for a guy who just hasn't been the player that you saw here. Like, everybody's like, oh, he was awesome here. Yeah, but he has never been close to that guy in any place he's been. There's a reason he's been on 5 different teams, just because
in about 5 different years.
Right, everybody's disappointed with what they get from him. He gave you the best 50-game run that he's probably ever had. You can't pay him based on those 50 games. That's the problem.
Listen, the change of scenery could have been good for Bader like it could be for Garcia. You never know.
It obviously was good for him for those 50 games, but what's going to happen in year 2 of that deal and year 3 of that deal? Why is Bader on all these different teams? Because these teams get him and they're like, now what? We got a 240 hitter with 13 home runs. Like, what are we supposed to do with this guy?
He also plays a better center field, so he plays a good defensive.
Very good defensive center fielder. That is not being debated here.
Yep. All right, let's move along. Nugget number 2. The Eagles yesterday. Little tune-up game. It's like when they schedule Appalachian State when it goes wrong. However, yesterday it went right.
Correction. Yeah.
Yeah. So you need those games. You need those tune-up games like they schedule in college, right? So that's what the Eagles played yesterday against the Raiders, getting the victory, 31-0, a trouncing. of the, did I say Oakland? I meant the Las Vegas Raiders. They should still be in Oakland, by the way. But listen, yesterday with the Birds, Jalen Hurts, what I thought was much better to see was to see him take off a little bit more. I know he got a little banged up towards the end with that ankle. Hopefully he's okay. He said he'll be fine essentially after the game. But I want to point out a stat that was interesting to me. He had 39 yards on 7 rushes yesterday. It was his most since the 4th game of the year this year. In those 4 games, he averaged 44.8 rushing yards in those games, and all of them were wins. The Eagles, after that, in their next 9, when he averaged way less than that, were 4 and 5. Clearly. And I know it was the Raiders yesterday, but when they get him moving on his legs and they get him running downfield and getting first downs, they mentioned the stat yesterday that he hadn't run for a first down in weeks since that had happened. So I thought that was good to see. The offense looked more fluid. You need a tune-up game to just get some confidence back in throwing the football. He didn't throw too much, but just getting the offense back to where it should be. And they had Dallas Goedert involved heavy.
Big time, 6 for 6 between the numbers, between the hash marks. 6 for 6, 71 yards, 3 touchdowns. So that was good to see that he felt comfortable there. He was 2 for 2 for 71 yards when he threw the ball 25 or more yards down the field. So he took some shots down the field. He completed both of those. Inside the pocket, he was 10 for 12 for 131 yards. So he obviously was a much more efficient player. You know, we had talked about it last week. From weeks 1 through 9, he completed 70% of his passes. From weeks 10 through 14, that number went down to 58%. So yesterday you saw the guy that we were more used to seeing through the first 9 weeks of the season. And quite frankly, no one should really be surprised that you got to bounce back from Jalen Hurts. This is really who he has been. He has had moments where he's been great, then he kind of, struggles a little bit. And, I think it's definitely fair.
And he was bad the last 5 weeks of the season. Before
I was going to say, it's definitely fair to say he didn't play well over the last 5 weeks. But to think that was going to be an extended, view of what he is becoming, I don't think that was all that realistic.
No, not at all. And this is who he's been, right? I believe it was BG after the game said something like, this is who he is, right? Like, remember, this is the guy who got benched in the national championship game, right? And has come back, persevered, and now is a Super Bowl champion, right? Like, he has gone through this time and time again. When you doubt the guy, he finds a way to bounce back somehow, some way. This is who he's been throughout his career. And
I think the big thing is
it's one game, but it was good to see.
The big thing to keep in mind is, what do we know about Jalen Hurts is that generally when the intensity level of the game goes up is when he shows up. So, yes, it's frustrating that he didn't play well. You can say, well, the intensity level of the game against Chicago was really big. Why did when you need Jalen Hurts generally to make a play, he makes it for you. Very infrequently is he not there for you in the biggest moments.
They call that the clutch.
It doesn't mean he's perfect, right? He's not going to be the MVP of every single big game that he plays in, but generally, if you want to say, what do I know about him, is that when it's a big game and a big moment, he generally shows up to play.
I mean, it's like they barely lost the game in 2 years up until like this stretch that the Eagles have gone through, right? Like, they won so many games in a row. They were due. If you just look at it and take a step back, they were due for a stretch like this. It hadn't happened in a while. So, they get back on track against the Raiders. You need the tune-up games against like the App States, and that was the Raiders yesterday.
Yep, and guess what? Anytime you win 31-0, it doesn't matter which team it's against. In the NFL, those games are few and far.
Yep, that's a big deal. All right, they're the Nuggets here. 2-pack for you today.
All right, there you go. I thought I was going to get a
Sixers
Embiid, 39 points on Friday night, man.
PG last night from Paul George.
Yeah.
Hitting 3 balls everywhere.
PG turned back the clock. Yeah, you know what, though? It was a loss, but to not have Maxey and go 1-1 in those games, I think you get Maxey back. What?
He took a sick day, by the way.
Yeah, 2 in a row.
2 sick days.
Yeah. Terrible. And they're off till Friday, by the way. So he has plenty of time to get back. Hopefully we'll see all 3 of those guys on the court together.
And how does that change
Friday
things?
Night.
How does that change Embiid and PG taking shots?
All right, we got the 5 o'clock hour coming up next. Grayson's grades. Scott Grayson grades the Eagles win over the Raiders. Stick around.
Kevin Harlan here from Monday Night Football on Westwood One. Coming up, it's the Dolphins at the Steelers. With a win over the Ravens, Aaron Rodgers and Pittsburgh now lead the AFC North. For Tua Tagovailoa and Miami, their season turnaround continues with 4 consecutive wins. Join me and Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner to find out who wins the Dolphins and Steelers on Monday Night Football.
Listen to Monday Night Football on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7:30. home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They got him again!
Sixers.
Bang! It's good! Ball game!
And Flyers.
Tipped in front of the net!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Of course, we are live on a Monday at the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. The Sports Bash every Monday live here. We're running out of weeks, only 3 weeks left to go. But are the Eagles saving the best for last? Well, let's bring in Professor Scott Grayson, as Grayson's grades are up right now. They're brought to you by the Bridgeton Auto Mall. And he joins us every week after every Eagles game to grade out the Birds. And probably the most impressive performance of the season, Scott, when you look at this game, it's really not the last 3 weeks we've had Fs. I don't know that the only F you can give is the performance and effort of the Vegas Raiders yesterday.
Yeah, and F stood for fun for the Eagles. It was all A's and B's on the card. I mean, I don't know how you could knock anybody yesterday. There wasn't really much to get upset about other than maybe Cooper DeJean with taking the 15-yard penalty, which I think I saw somewhere was the biggest gain of the day for the Raiders. It was dominating. And I think so you look at it and you say, I know everybody's doing this today, right? Like, was it a product of the Raiders being the Raiders or was it the Eagles being the Eagles? Well, marching down the field and scoring early, that's how you beat a bad team, right? Because they're going to want to quit. And you could see the Raiders, some of the players, I mean, Crosby was getting into it with some guys on the sidelines who I think he was thinking were not giving their full effort out there. And they were looking to get on that plane and go back to Vegas, but you had to put them there. And I think that's what the defense was doing really well. And that's what the Eagles offense was doing with some long sustained drives. I mean, it was sheer domination and it should have been. I don't think anybody was expecting a shutout. I know I wasn't, but to go out there and do that, there was like just enough time to really get on a roll here going into the playoffs. And I left there going, okay, that's great. Now show it to me again Saturday.
Yeah, let's, last couple of weeks we've been starting at the bottom of the report card, Fs, and working our way up. Let's start at the top. Jalen Hurts, A. Obviously, you look at the numbers, huge bounce back, but 12 of 15. He only threw the ball 15 times, but he was accurate. He was efficient. 3 touchdowns. You were waiting for Hurts at the end of the day to say, is that all what y'all wanted to see? But yeah. It was kind of, vintage Hurts in this game. Not a lot of passes, but the ones that he did throw had a lot of impact.
Well, and this is the thing that, right, what I want to see, I don't want to see Jalen Hurts throw. I was telling, Billy Schwein this over the weekend. I don't want to see Jalen Hurts throw the ball 40 times. If you ask him to throw it 40 times, you're going to get turnovers. It's just going to happen. It's been the proof of what he's been. When he's at his best, he's throwing, 25-ish times, but he's also running. And yesterday he had some designed runs. And this is another thing. All season long, when he would get out of the pocket, he was going out the sides. And then, trying to string plays along and either taking losses or throwing the ball away. In the past, when he was really good, and you had to respect his legs, he would shoot up the middle of a pocket to get out of it and go get some yards. That's straightest line is the fast way, to another destination. And he was doing that and putting yards together. And he did that a couple times yesterday. I think he had 7 carries. So 15 pass attempts, 7 carries for him in 3 quarters. I mean, if he would have had to play the fourth quarter more, certainly there'd have been more totals there. But that's the kind of percentage I want to see. And then 22 carries for Saquon. I thought it was really well balanced. They had a rhythm. They had a flow. As critical as I've been of Kevin Patullo, I thought yesterday there was a lot of that. There was, you could see a game plan and they were executing it as a team. And so, yeah, as far as Jalen Hurts goes, I think the biggest thing was, and this is what you got to like about that, at times it can make you angry. You want to say, I just want to see some emotion, throw a helmet, but that's not him. He's cool. He's level-headed, and he came back and he did exactly what he had to do. And in talking to players afterwards, because I was in the locker room yesterday, they were, they had his back. They never quit on him. They never gave up on him, even after the 5-turnover game. Nobody was frustrated with him. I think they all knew that, and he knew he had to play better than that. But they weren't surprised to see him bounce back like that. And I think that was one of the signs that you look at to say, okay, are they about to go on a little bit of a run? And, they're still together in that locker room. There is no divide. As much as I know the fan base has been against them, you can sense that locker room is still very much together.
Well, you did see a little fire out of Jalen Hurts on the one touchdown he threw. He did, that was probably the most any reaction that I've seen from him throw on one of the throws. That was kind of like, hey, people, he did say after the game, like, I think people forget, like, how I'm built and all that stuff. So I do feel that Jalen had, and that's just not his personality, but I do feel like deep down he wanted to prove some people wrong yesterday.
Yeah, I think he definitely did. There was certainly that attitude. I mean, Landon Dickerson was very short with the media, too, on any questions about Jalen because, he was blaming all of us in the media for criticizing him. Well, I mean, everybody's been. The media, the fans, everybody was. And I think rightfully so. But he answered the bell. And you're right about the emotion. It was on the A.J. Brown touchdown. And that was right after he had, remember how the third quarter ended? He went down a little awkwardly and was sort of limping around a little bit coming off the field. And I watched him that whole break in between the quarter. Not a trainer went over to him. Nobody went over near him. He started walking towards the other end of the field, then jumped up and down a little bit to test that knee out. And he went out there, and I think he just wanted to show he was fine, he was good, and he wanted to throw that, in that sense, I think he knew if they scored there, they were done. I don't know if Nick told them, look, you guys get a touchdown here, I'm taking starters out. But I think that's what all that was all of that in that moment. And for him, especially, to know that he had that good of a game and finish it with that throw.
It's almost like an indirect, like, you guys wanted to see Tanner McKee? I'll get him into the game.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like him just quietly, giving you a wink of, like, you asked for him, I'll get him to you here. I do want to get into Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni. Sirianni kind of inserted himself more into the game plan over the last couple of weeks. We've heard a lot of that. Kevin Patullo has been kind of dragged over the coals here. What did you think of the game plan and the offense yesterday?
I was glad to see number one, let me start with that. I was really glad to see those shovel passes as they get down inside the 10 and the 5 to Dallas Goedert. They ran that. He had, I think, 3 touchdowns earlier this season on shovel passes, and then we haven't seen it for months. And I did ask Dallas about that after the game because it really seems like an effective play. And he said it's because all the misdirection, all the guys you have to worry about, the last thing that the defense is thinking is, Dallas Goedert's going to get a shovel pass in the middle of that offense and then go with it somewhere. And that's why I think it's an effective play. But he pointed out accurately, he's like, we hadn't been down close to the goal line a whole lot to where we could use that play. And so I like that play. I like that design. I don't know if that's Kevin Patullo or if that's Sirianni or who came up with it, but the fact that they went back to it and showed it again means teams are going to have to worry about that as you get into the playoffs. So I don't know what was going on with the rhythm of that offense, but it was better. And I don't know if that's Nick being a part of it, if it was Kevin Patullo starting to figure some things out. I think we have to remember it's his first year as an offensive coordinator. As much as you watch others do it till you're the one doing it, you almost have to find success to feel what that success is like and then kind of go, okay, now I can draw on that experience moving forward to understand how to call a game better and things like that. Now, whether that happened yesterday or not, it'd certainly be nice, but I don't know where he's been getting a little bit of help from and how much Nick was playing a role in that. But I think together they certainly had a good game plan out there offensively that they were able to build off of a lot of success. And again, I want to see that carry over now on Saturday.
Yeah, and one of the things I've been critical of Patullo more is, like, there's no story, there's no rhyme, there's no reason. And like, I thought he did a much better job of building things up. And, they did stick with the run game, back-to-back 70-plus yard games now. That Barkley had more yards than the Raiders did yesterday. That kind of is a microcosm of what happened in the game yesterday. But as you said, it is the Raiders. However, we've seen this NFL where good teams have struggled. We've seen bad teams beat good teams. You don't see very many just dominating blowouts. And Pete Carroll said after the game, he said, that looked like a defending champion that we were just basically outclassed by in that. And a lot of the reasons they were outclassed, I do want to, real quick, you gave Barkley a B, and I want to kind of ask about Barkley. Do we see the run game kind of getting back on track? The offensive line, you also gave a B. Do we feel that they're getting back on track, or is this another microcosm of Now, because Raiders, Washington. I know Buffalo's in the mix there, but Washington twice. I don't know that we're going to get a good feel of what this offense is unless they give you 3 more performances like this. If you can consistently give a performance, I don't care what the quality of opponent is if you do it 4 weeks in a row.
So that's just it, and that's why I think there is just enough time here for them to really get on a roll that could vault them through a little bit of a run in the playoffs. But as far as all that goes, why were they able to have success on the ground? Well, one of the things that stood out to me very clearly as a big difference over the last few weeks and during this losing streak was not just, okay, they didn't turn it over, but they didn't have those penalties, pre-snap penalties, things that would set them back. So every time Saquon would get 3 or 4 yards, they wouldn't follow it up with a 5-yard penalty and then have to face a 2nd or 3rd and long. And so he was able to break a 17-yarder. The view from the press box looking down there yesterday, Saquon's still missing a couple of cutback lanes, but I feel he's seeing them a little better now, and I think the offensive line is doing a better job of holding some of their blocks longer without obviously the penalties. And certainly good news this week is that it sounds like Lane Johnson's going to try to come back this Saturday, and if not this week, it would be against the Bills. So that offensive line is just going to get even better, and as he comes back and gets ready for the playoffs, and then once he's back, you can really throw in that formation, remember, where they bring Fred Johnson in as an extra lineman and be able to do some things off of that. So, I think there's a reason to believe that this offensive line is turning a corner. You just did with Jeff Stoutland, like it wasn't going to last. Like something had to give here, and I think that's where they were kind of getting to with this offensive line. And Saquon also running behind it better. He looked more patient yesterday. I think he was starting to kind of like really try to hit those holes before they closed. And they just weren't really there over the last few weeks. And yesterday I felt like he was a little more patient at times in the holes and then also would cut back a little bit. But like I said, there's still a little bit he'll see on film where he had a lane he could have kicked to the outside and maybe gotten an even bigger gain. So there's definitely room for improvement. They were all saying that after the game. I know they feel that way, but they were glad to get that 31-0 victory, of course. And I think the line is certainly building on some of that confidence. They'll be able to build on that as well. But the biggest thing to me, Mike, was just not having those killer penalties that can kill drives.
Yeah, and Scott Grace's grades over at 97.3ESPN.com. We've been talking a lot about the offense, and the offense has been a lot of the problem. But you pitch a shutout, 75 yards. Vic Fangio, he got an A, but you could essentially plug and play everybody in here. Brandon Graham, 2 sacks from the defensive tackle position. Nakobe Dean, all over the place. Zach Bond, been waiting for him to kind of make a play. He gets an interception. You could throw in Maro Ojomo and Jordan Davis. I mean, you pretty much pick a guy out, and you could put him in the A category.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'm really enjoying watching Jordan Davis this season. I really like the way that he is filling in there, and especially without Jalen Carter there. That was one of the questions. With Jalen Carter out, would Jordan Davis be able to step up? And look, they got torched by the Bears on the ground, just got blown up and lost at the line of scrimmage a lot of times. Jordan Davis has really taken it upon himself to kind of really help stuff that run. And they certainly he did a great job of that yesterday. I like watching him. I thought the idea of moving Brandon Graham inside has really, that paid off, obviously, and that was interesting. And BG, he loved it. He's happy to do whatever he can to get in there, and he's really feeling like he's in a groove now and back through what he called his training camp. So I like the way Vic Fangio runs that defense. And here's another guy I thought about after the fact when I had already kind of put my grades to bed. I was critical of Adoree Jackson a lot. Over the last couple of weeks, I am seeing some growth out of him, and I think his coverage skills have gotten a lot better. He seems to, maybe it's just a matter of settling in to what Vic Fangio is doing back there in that secondary, but that whole secondary is making it hard for these quarterbacks to throw into, and I thought he played really well yesterday. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, all of them, you're right, plug and play, but this defense, to me, if they're going to make a run, this defense is going to have to be one of the keys that allows the offense to maybe sputter a little bit, but then find a drive and then find another drive. And I think Fangio, is brilliant. It's great to watch him work and what he does with these guys, and they love him.
Well, and we got to also, put out there that no Jalen Carter the last 2 weeks. And I know the Raiders, their offensive line's a disaster. They're a disaster. But to get the kind of play that you're getting, what they hold them to under 50 yards rushing, 75 total. I mean, it was just a complete dominant effort, but you don't get that without great defensive line play. And it's good to see Ojomo, Byron Young, Brandon Graham. I mean, they may have found a little something with him playing in the interior of the line here.
Right, and as you get Jalen Carter back and you're able to then go to that depth, I mean, that's what they were doing so well last year, right? Constantly rotating in guys and having fresh bodies, especially in that second half, to be able to go after a quarterback. And so I think that's a great thing. And you're right. As Jalen Carter comes back, you hope he'll be more effective than he had been a lot this year. I think he's been playing through an injury pretty much all season when he has been in there. So it'll be good that they got that fixed and try to get that going. But, yeah, I mean, this defense it is clicking. And when they are clicking, they're a lot of fun to watch. And again, it is the Raiders. It was Kenny Pickett. It was an offensive line that's not very good. But they did what they were supposed to do. And it helped also, and I think this gets overlooked, but the Raiders only, I think, had 42 snaps. They only ran like 42 plays. Well, why was that? Because the offense went on 4 drives that were of at least double-digit plays. So they were milking clock, going down the field, moving the chains, and then ultimately getting points. So I think it really was a complimentary, as the coaches all call it, a complimentary attack. The offense was helping the defense. Defense was getting off the field and giving the offense the ball back, and it just kept going and snowballing until it ended up 31-0.
Yeah, and, we don't get too many of these games where you're like, man, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot to complain about. I don't know that there was anything to complain about. Really, I mean, you take a look at it, no C, no D, no F in the game for you yesterday. This is one of those rare NFL games where you pretty much dominated all the way here. And the one thing is, I guess at the end of the day, we're going to be wondering, can the offense we think the defense can be this defense, right? We do think the defense can lead them through the playoffs, but it only takes 1 week where your defense just doesn't dominate or absolutely shut you down. Has the offense turned the corner enough to where, hey, yeah, we can score 21, 24 points in a game if we have to? That's the big question that will really be, unanswered until these next 3 weeks. We'll see a little bit more.
Yeah, that's why I really want to see. For me, all the questions you ask are great questions, and I personally am like, okay, loved what I saw yesterday. That was great. It was the Raiders. But division games are division games. So I'm not going to look at this and say, oh, it's the lowly stinking Commanders, which you can do, right? They're not a great team, but they are a division team. And division games can really be battles and be dogfights with these guys because of the familiarity. And so if they can come out and do a little more of that, I think the key is you've got to be able to run Jalen Hurts on design plays or the RPO stuff every now and then, just so the defense has to respect it. I think it opens up a lot more opportunities for them and a little bit bigger windows to throw into when he does pass. That I just think makes this offense better. And you saw some of that yesterday, and that's what I want to continue to see. I want to see Jalen do some of that. I want to see Patullo call some of that. And he's just got to be smart with his legs and not get hurt.
Well, that's the big thing, though, Scott. I think you just nailed it right there. Is that we did see some design run stuff. We saw him on a third down take off, like, hey, I need 7, I'll go get 7. That was the frustrating thing when you watch the Charger game. Is hey, when Herbert needed 7, he went and got 7. Not that he has to do it because he's being reckless, just because that was the best play at that time. On the flip side, Jalen's got 4 carries for 8 yards. Justin Herbert's got 10 for 66, and that's where he helps you out so much, and you saw a little bit of that yesterday as well. I thought they were really, we have seen them throughout most of this year be really good in the red zone, and then they've been kind of, getting stopped a little bit there, and I thought they were very creative in the red zone, and we just saw a little bit more flair and a little bit more of an extra wrinkle to the play calling yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's the definition of it, right? You're right. There was a plan. There was a scheme. It wasn't basic, what we've been complaining about, right? Predictable. It didn't feel that way at all yesterday. Like they were setting up to run plays, and I felt like they used a little more motion yesterday than they had. And Jalen was under center occasionally here and there. Like it was a good mix of everything. You haven't felt that way. Now, a lot of the times, again, it was because they're doing 3 and outs. If you're running 3 plays and punting, it's hard to get any kind of a mix going when you only have 3 plays. So the fact that they were able to move those chains and go down the field, and you saw a deep ball to Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown didn't have a lot of catches, but he had the one touchdown, which was a beautiful throw, beautiful route, beautiful catch. And that's what you need to see to kind of go, okay, yeah, they're good. And the emotion that you mentioned earlier from Jalen, and A.J. Brown had it. And the guys, was it a get-right game? I'm willing to get on board with the fact that maybe it was a get-right game. Did it fix everything? I need to see more.
Yeah, I think we all need to see more, but it was a kind of a, settle down type of game. And, listen, there's no way that the people who were calling to see Tanner McKee play, there was no possible way that's happening. I mean, it's just ridiculous to think that the Eagles are going to be like, hey, we got 4 games left. We're going to make a switch. And Jalen Hurts kind of shows you why. Yes, he had struggled a little bit. He had shown that, he needed to play better, and he did that yesterday. And it was to be expected that Jalen Hurts is, going to bevy of bad. I mean, I think he played very mediocre over the last 5 weeks, but at no point should the Eagles have ever entertained, making a change.
Yeah, and when you look at one key thing too, Mike, is this is one of those strange scheduling quirks. They came off the Monday night game. It was a short week to play the Raiders. Don't underestimate the value of getting those starters out in the fourth quarter because it is a short week again now leading into Saturday. And the fact that the defense only had to play 42 snaps. Like these guys, as much as it is a short week, they should be, better than, than the Commanders are going to be and a little more rested than they could have been if they had to go through that whole game and they even really play even longer. So I think that's important to keep in mind too.
No, that's a good point. Definitely the fact that they got everybody. I saw a lot of, the backup offensive linemen out there too. I thought that was a good thing to get some of those guys out of the game. And then as you mentioned, can you get Lane Johnson back? That would be a huge boost for this team moving forward. For the most part, you got 3 games left, and it's a battle of attrition for a lot of these teams. You saw Mahomes go down yesterday, Micah Parsons go down yesterday. I mean, the fact that you got through that game with really no injuries to discuss, that's an A+ right there.
Yeah, but that's certainly something you're going to watch. They are getting healthier as they're getting towards the most important part of the season. So you want these guys right. And that is very important. You mentioned all the key injuries yesterday. You start looking around the league as teams get eliminated, and you start saying, okay, look at the quarterbacks that are not going to be part of the postseason. There's some really good ones that are going to miss this year. And so that's when you start looking down the road. And I think the NFC is going to be tough, but you're looking at, I think right now, the Eagles should be in line for most likely a 2 or a 3. Another win will distance them from the 4 and also lock up the division. So I think they're looking at a 2 or a 3 seed. And of course, they went to the Super Bowl last year as a 2. So they're ultimately kind of getting where they kind of wanted to be. The path to get there was certainly very frustrating for a lot of us and for them. But they're setting themselves up for success, and I think that's why they did the procedure with Jalen Carter when they did. I think that's why they're treating Lane Johnson the way they are. They didn't put him on IR. He could have been back last week, and I think they were eyeballing that, but then decided to play it safe and make sure he really is ready because they know just how valuable he is. So a healthy team is certainly a dangerous one in the postseason.
All right, Scott Grayson's grades are posted after every Eagles game over at 97.3ESPN.com. You can check him out on Fox 29 later tonight. He'll be giving you all the Eagles post-game coverage as they get ready now for a Saturday matchup with the Commanders, their first rematch of the NFC Championship game with a Commanders team whose season has not gone the way they wanted. The Eagles looking to close out this season strong. If they finish 12-5, they are at least the 3 seed. They can be the number 1 seed. We'll give you some updates on how that could happen. They can be the number 2 seed as well. We'll give you some updates on how that can happen as well. But Scott Grayson's grades brought to you by the Bridgeton Auto Mall. If you're ready to score your next big drive, head straight for the end zone at Bridgeton Auto Mall. Scott Grayson, thanks, buddy.
All right, thank you, Mike.
All right, there's Grayson's grades, of course, every Monday after the Eagles games right here on 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget Scott's great work over at Fox 29 as well. All right, still to come, the Phillies will get into their signing. They have added a right-handed bat to the lineup. We'll continue to update you on the Hot Stove League, but you can check out more on that right now over at 97.3 ESPN.com. I am Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We are live at the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Merry Christmas from all of us at 97.3 ESPN.
The most wonderful time of the year. Ho, 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 ho.
South Jersey's home for Eagles football.
We have the perfect solution for sitting in traffic.
You come with me.
The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, 5:32. It's a Monday after an Eagles win. And you know what? The Eagles won, and it's awesome, and they're finally back on the winning track. It's one of the games that you expect to win. Do you expect to win 31-0 and as clean as they did? Maybe not the way they've been going. But then it's one of those things where it's like you win, and then you can't even, like, enjoy it because people are like, well, you beat the Raiders, right? And it's like, well, if they didn't beat the Raiders, you'd really be miserable. If they struggled against the Raiders, you'd really be miserable. So they blow the Raiders out, and it's like, well, it's the Raiders. You can't win in one of these games.
Did they look different doing it, though? Like, if they play the Raiders in October, do you have the same outcome, or have they learned stuff throughout the season and they've kind of been more creative yesterday? I thought
they did exactly what you wanted them to do. They ran the ball well. They threw the ball well. They played great defense. I mean, yes, they looked a little bit more creative. You felt like, hey, there's a play, there's a wrinkle, there's something. Like, yeah, I don't think you could really complain much about anything other than the fact that, you know, the opponent that they played was not great. They dominated them. That's what you want. You want to dominate. In the NFL, when you can dominate any team, it's like the night they played the Giants. You took it like, okay, we're playing the Giants. You got your butt kicked in that game.
Yeah.
So you go around the league and kind of take a look at what happened. It was a wild, good day. I mean, so let's take a look at some of the stuff in how it kind of plays now. So the Bears win. They crush the Browns. The Bears right now, that win against Philadelphia puts them in the driver's seat for the number 2 seed. The Ravens shut out the Bengals. I mean, yesterday Joe Burrow looked like he was not interested in being there. That's going to be a big offseason story, don't you guys think?
Oh, yeah.
What happens with Joe Burrow?
Well, I think it's even bigger if you're someone who watched the Netflix quarterback show, because if you watch the Netflix quarterback show, you know that Burrow is not a guy who's like, you know, he really does love football. And the part of the problem for Joe is he's a single guy. He's kind of a dork. You know, he's in like, you know, comic books and watching football. Like, he doesn't really have a ton of like life interests. So like for him, it's like he's like all ball most of the time. They had the one episode where like his team wasn't playing on Sunday, so he's just sitting around the house by himself. And he actually told the camera people, he's like, you know, it's kind of nice to have somebody here because I'm always here by myself. Like that's the way this guy is. So, like, if that guy keeps saying, I'm not having fun, I'm not happy, this could be Carson Palmer all over again.
Well, a lot of people say it could be Andrew Luck, he just decides to hang him up. Now, Luck left because he was getting beat up. But so is Burrow. Burrow's been beat up a lot, and Andrew Luck just walked out at the top of his game and never came back, by the way. Many people thought, like, okay, he'll come back, and he never ended up coming back.
Luck's a different cat, though, because Luck's a guy who he had other things outside of football that he was interested in. Like, the guy's an engineering major, for goodness sake. Like, none of us are that.
So that was the Ravens stayed alive there. Then you had the Chargers kind of end the Chiefs, like, you know, they had no shot of the Chiefs had no real life after that, but it's officially over. Mahomes goes out. It's kind of like, you know, people talking about how Brady tore his ACL in the same 9th season. But, you know, this Chiefs thing has kind of felt like it, but that game yesterday was kind of seeing Mahomes go down the tunnel like that. It's kind of an eerie thought of, like, you know.
And you saw that with the Parsons injury and Mahomes injury when I mean, you saw the anguish on their face. Like, you knew something was serious. Because Mahomes, he usually gets right back up, right, when he gets hit pretty hard like that.
Yeah, and for him to be, you know, have to get carried out the way. But the Chargers win that game. They needed it. The Chiefs, they needed it to just – and they were on life support even if they won that game yesterday, so they get knocked out. Bills, awesome game against the Patriots. It was tough. Although the one good thing was I was watching the Eagle game, and that was the game that was on opposite the Eagle game. And then when the Eagle game ended at 3:30, there was still 10 minutes left in that game. So you got to really see the nuts and bolts of that game. And, man, what a second half from Josh Allen.
5 straight touchdowns on 5 straight possessions, right?
Yep, something like that. But, you know, the second half, they scored 28. They outscored – they were down 21-0.
Right.
And then they outscored them 28-7 in the second half of that game. Unbelievable.
Yeah, just like the Cowboys.
Commanders, Giants, worst game of the year, of the day, I should say, not worst of the year. You have the Giants are playing the Raiders coming up in 2 weeks, I think.
Now, the worst game of the day was Bears-Browns.
No, I'm talking about a game that didn't mean anything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the two teams, that was the only game where the two teams that played had nothing at stake.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Jets, Jags, you had Jags. I don't know, man. That Jags team, 48-20. And now
Trevor Lawrence, 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, the Jags, they have a shot here to be the number 1 seed.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence is the reason why I'm going to lose one of my fantasy leagues because the guy I went against had Trevor Lawrence. I had no chance after that.
No chance. Texans, great game by C.J. Stroud. And that puts them in play now, keeps them in play for the South. But that South is going to be interesting. You got them.
You could have 3
and
teams
now the
come out of the
Jacksonville
South.
Jags. I don't know, man. I don't know that the Colts have anything left in the
Yeah, I mean, New England was 8-2 at one point, and now they're 8-6, and really needing
Not New
a lot
England,
of
the
help.
Colts.
Or, I'm sorry, yeah, Indianapolis.
I don't know that.
With 44-year-old Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't abysmal yet. He didn't embarrass himself, but, I mean.
He wasn't the reason why they lost, but he put them in a position to win the game a couple times. They just – you could tell that
can't
the Colts,
throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field.
Yeah, I think that was more play calling, like Shane Steichen, right? He knew what he had there.
Right, he knew his strike rate. I think the bigger problem with the Colts isn't the quarterback, it's the running back. Once teams started slowing down Jonathan Taylor, it's like the Colts offense has no answers.
That's poor, by the way. The MLB Network has a graphic on the screen right now with the Phillies' projected lineup. They got García playing left field and Castellanos playing right field. Now, you know Castellanos is not going to be in the team with Brandon Marsh playing center field.
Who's the idiot who made that graphic?
Yeah, I mean, that's whoever approved that. That's poor.
That's a real thing. That just happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way that's their outfield next year. I get it. They all have contracts, so maybe, but still, I mean, you would at least say, hey, there's a good chance that Castellanos is not back. Anyway, Packers-Broncos, awesome game. That was the best game that Bo Nix probably has ever played.
Bo Nix stepped up huge in that game because there were multiple moments where you were wondering, like, are the Packers going to find a way to win this game? Are the Packers going to do this or that? And Bo Nix just like, nah, I'm going to execute this offense at a high level and nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and listen, we said Jacksonville, a couple teams have a shot, but you need Denver to really fall apart, and I don't see that happening.
I don't see it
Denver, their last loss was what, September? Which is just unbelievable.
Yeah, they've won, 12 in a row?
Yeah.
Well, and that Philly game was really the one that allowed them to take off. I mean, if Philly wins that game, think about how different the season is for everybody. Philly is within striking distance of the number 1 seed, and, Denver – who knows what happens after that?
They have not
game.
lost since September 21st.
Unbelievable. Lions-Rams, another back-and-forth game. Neither team could get a stop, but the Lions just have no defense.
Lions are just so injured. Like
the Rams, though, that Adams injury will be interesting.
That's huge.
I don't think he plays the last 3 weeks here.
Well, he's not going to play this week at least. They play Thursday night.
I would definitely doubt that he plays.
And remember, he leads the NFL in touchdown catches.
Oh, I mean, he's a big loss for that team. Panthers, awful loss by them. I mean, listen, I know the Panthers aren't great.
It's called a choke job, Mike.
Oh, you have a shot here.
It was right in your hand.
The Buccaneers do the same thing the week before, and you have a chance to capitalize on it playing the Saints.
Does Kellen Moore give votes for Coach of the Year?
Doubtful.
They were winning the game in the fourth quarter, and they just choked it like
the
Josh
Bucs
said.
and the Saints here.
Yeah.
They have 4 wins, by the way. They just won 2 games in a row against the teams that are in first place in their division.
Saints are out of the running for the number 1 pick.
I'll tell you what, the Shook kid, actually, they might have something there.
I mean, he's definitely serviceable. I never hated the guy. I just don't have a lot of faith that he's going to be – I don't think he's great. I just think
but the problem is he's an older kid, right? And
he's 25.
Are you going to go into, now, there's some bad games coming up. Like the Raiders play the Giants in a couple of weeks. Nobody's going to want to win that game.
Well, that could be for the number 1 overall pick, though, right?
Exactly. As I said, who wants to win that game?
Yeah.
But, seriously, the two fan bases are going to be going crazy. Nobody wants to win that game between those two. You heard what Hugh Myers told us on Friday. He said the Raiders were actually worried that the Raiders might win the game against the Eagles, and nobody wants them to because they want the number 1 pick. So the Raiders play the Giants coming up. The Saints have kind of pulled themselves out of the number 1 pick situation, but Then you got the Titans. They fought hard against the Niners. Now, something Adam Kaplan said about the Niners, he said he thinks they're kind of a byproduct, or was it McMullen, I think, said it, kind of a byproduct of their schedule at 10-4. Because right now, if the playoffs were to start, I think Philly would play San Francisco.
3 against the 6, yeah.
I believe so. I'll pull it up real quick.
And then you had Seahawks-Colts. I got questions about the Seahawks' ability in the playoffs to score. Their running game stinks, by the way. The 2 running backs they have, Walker and Charbonneau, stink. And,
it was all field goals. They didn't score a touchdown.
Right, and they had, other than Jackson Smith and Jigba, they got nothing.
No. I mean, Rashid Shaheed had his best game ever as a Seahawk, and that wasn't even that impressive.
I don't know that that's a team that I think can win 4 games in the playoffs.
They're not.
They could be the 1 seed, though. They would only have to win 3 games in that situation.
Good news for everybody. You can beat them.
Although I don't know that you want to go out to Seattle.
Yeah, playing in Seattle is a tough play, but listen, the Colts with a 44-year-old almost beat them. Give me a better team.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I watched that game yesterday a little bit, and you're thinking, okay, you've got Phillip Rivers hasn't played in 5 years. He can't throw the ball more than literally 15 yards down the field. And the Seahawks, they couldn't do anything offensively. And they really should have lost that game yesterday, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I don't think that they thought that they'd win 11 games this season right after trading Metcalf and signing Darnold, new quarterback.
They gave Darnold a lot of money, though. So I don't think that they were thinking they were going to lose. I do think that maybe you're right, Pete, in that they're maybe ahead of the plan. Like they're maybe a year ahead kind of thing. But I don't think they thought they were going to be a losing team this year.
Well, and then – no, I don't think Minnesota, that's a team that has a lot of talent. Their defense is pretty good. And for Dallas, though, to lose that game at home is awful.
Minnesota's really relishing that we are going to ruin people's seasons role because they beat Washington last week, eliminated from the playoffs, beat Dallas this past weekend.
I think Washington's fate had been sealed.
No, but they didn't just beat them. They beat them 21-0. They
31-0. 31-0.
31-0, sorry. So, now you take out Dallas. They have a 1% chance at the postseason. In 2 weeks, they got Detroit and then Green Bay. Imagine if Minnesota wins out. And it's we didn't make the playoffs, but we ruined everybody else's life.
Well, that's the thing, is the McCarthy was such a wild card. This is a team, correct me if I'm wrong, won 14 games last year?
Yeah, it was either 13 or 14.
13 or 14 games. So they make the switch at quarterback after winning 13 or 14 games, and the drop is that you're down to 6 right now. So they're a disappointment, but still.
14-3 last year.
They were 14-3 last year. Now, that being said, Dallas, to lay an egg like that last night is awful.
That was horrible.
Horrendous. Which I don't really feel all that bad about.
By the way, so the playoffs ended today. As you said, Mike, the Eagles would be the 3 seed. They will play the 49ers. The Bears would play the Packers. And the Bucs would play the Seahawks.
Yeah, Bucs, Seahawks. Yeah, obviously you would see Seattle would probably win that game.
That was a really wild game earlier this year.
Tampa's tough at home.
They are, and this game would be in Tampa in this scenario.
Now, Carolina and Tampa play twice, don't they?
Coming up.
They play this week like the Eagles do, right? No. Am I wrong about that? I know they play this week.
Yeah, they play Carolina this week and then in 2 weeks.
Just like the Eagles.
You had it right the first time, Mike.
They play in week 16, then again in week 18. So that's going to decide it right there.
And Tampa plays Miami in between. Carolina plays Seattle in between.
But, yeah, well, and that's interesting because Seattle right now is the 5 seed. But if they end up winning now, they play the Rams on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Which changes. Now, in the AFC, Denver's the 1. New England right now would play Houston. I can't imagine if you're New England, you're thrilled about that.
No.
I would imagine that's not a great matchup for New England. Jacksonville would play Buffalo right now. And Pittsburgh plays the Chargers. That's your AFC matchups. Could be fun playoffs.
I mean, Buffalo, they have to be thinking they still have a chance at that AFC East.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. After winning that game yesterday, now you're 1 back with 3 to play. You're definitely in the mix. Definitely in the mix. All right, we'll do one thought every game tomorrow. Casey Joyner. Also, when we come back, the Phillies made a signing today. We'll give some final thoughts on that. Monday Night Football tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN, Dolphins and Steelers. We're live at the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Merry Christmas from all of us at 97.3 ESPN.
Ho, ho, ho. My home for sports.
South Jersey's home for Eagles football.
All right, 5:52, getting ready to get out of here. Phil signed Adolis García, defensive run save leaders in right field last season. Garcia was the leader. You got a legit Gold Glove right fielder, cannon for an arm, gets the balls, big upgrade in the outfield. Don't know if it's much of an upgrade at the plate. I would say that
postseason maybe, right? I mean,
well, I would say to me, just a higher ceiling. I think he has the ability. I feel more comfortable saying that he could break out and have a 35 home run season. Not that I'm calling for that, but I don't see any scenario where Nick Castellanos is having a 30 home run year or 20 home run year anymore. I think Castellanos' days of hitting for power are pretty much done.
That was his bad attitude.
Well, yeah. They're both pretty streaky, right? I mean, they can give you a couple good months.
Garcia is very streaky,
off.
yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think he's got a better attitude about it.
Well, I think he's going to be a fan favorite. I think he's a guy that the fans are going to really kind of connect with. I think being in Philly in a better baseball, he was awesome when that town was buzzing for baseball in Texas. Don't discount that. When they had full houses, they're going to have that every night here, and I'm interested to see what they do next. I think he'll play right field, and I actually think opening day he'll play right field and hit fourth.
And JT is still out there.
JT's out there.
Does this change anything? Or this
no,
has
I
nothing
think
to do
all
with
signs point to JT coming back. By the way, the last 2-minute report, did you guys see this?
Did they admit blame on the
No, they actually said they got it right.
Oh, okay.
That,
double down?
Well,
was
the
he fouled?
last 2-minute report, this is what it says. It says Alexander Walker's momentum carries him into the backcourt, which is legal in the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter and in overtime. So,
there you go.
Now, you could say that, okay, why didn't they call the foul earlier? But the call of backcourt, which was the one that everybody was questioning.
And Grimes had a good look at the buzzer there.
They did.
Good look.
He had a good look. But that last possession they had previous to that was terrible.
Yep.
All right. We'll see Maxey, George, and Embiid. Can they all play on Friday night together? Can that happen? It would be a Christmas miracle. We'll talk to you Tuesday, everybody.